Hopefully you all are doing well this start of the day. Hopefully we'll have a conversation with a few others for some of the stuff going on with Memorial Day and all the stuff. We had our meeting and we talked about it last night. So if you need more information down the road, we'll try to see if we can get it to you. I apologize, everybody. I'm still setting up, trying to figure out where in the world we're going to be able to place everybody so that they can see as far as the different devices we got and whatnot. I just forgot we were playing outside with little bows and arrows, Nerf bows and arrows yesterday. I forgot I got this stuff all over the place, but anyways. Hopefully y'all are doing well. I promise you, everything's gonna shift in a second. I just gotta at least get everybody in the proper position to start. But once again, prayerfully, all is well, and everybody's doing okay. I am sorry for my tardiness. I once again tried to find a spot, and the place I was looking for is closed, and there's not really anywhere else I can go. So I just came back over this way, and at least found a place to park so that we can go ahead and get into this word for today. So please forgive me and excuse the, I would even say we could, let me see, is it possible to have y'all? Okay, I don't know, YouTube, we'll see if that works. If I leave y'all like that, YouTube, can you hear me? Anybody on YouTube, can you guys hear me from this position? If I keep you guys there? Yes? Okay, all right. We'll try to keep you guys there then. Alrighty, sorry TikTok, sorry YouTube. We're almost there. Okay. Yeah, we are just about there, just about ready. TikTok, forgive me. You're gonna pause. I just want to make sure that the phone is charging. All right, it says it is. We'll see what's going on. The normal charger I would use, I'm not using. I'm using the car charger. But prayerfully that'll be enough for today. Matter of fact, I'll just do it like this. Get you guys going. Okay. I wanted to show you guys some pictures. For some reason, it hasn't been letting me use the app to do like shout out stuff and things of that nature. Oh, okay. All right. Well, we might use a little bit of that today. Hopefully it works during the shout out. It didn't work yesterday. But thank you all for your patience on this rising. I was going to send a message out letting everybody know I was running late, but I ended up kind of all over the place just trying to find a place to park to make sure that we got the message out. So thank you for being on. Keep myself and my family in prayer if y'all don't mind, as we continue to navigate things and try to get stuff together and try to make these moves work with everything. Elder Alma is trying to get stuff together for those who didn't get their calendar. There were a lot more, seems like, that didn't get it yet, so we had to check everything and see what's going on. But she's making sure that she's taking care of that, so you guys should be getting that stuff. Sorry again about that. I know it's way past, because we were trying to make sure that we got it out by the beginning of February at the latest, definitely by the middle of, we were hoping for the middle of January, and hasn't happened yet, but it will happen. Thank you for your patience. Thank you for still rocking with us. Praise you. All right. Hopefully all is well. Once again, I believe we're starting in Genesis chapter 2, verse 10, if I'm not mistaken. So if you'd like to turn there and get ready for the Bible pledge. And while we're doing that, Once you have it, say amen. Say, God, it's I'm with you. While we're doing that, we'll go ahead and say shalom, peace to everybody real quick. And then we shall finally get started. Oh, my greatness. Hopefully you guys have been enjoying the series so far and seeing why it's important that from time to time we go back and we dive into things that might have been taught incorrectly or just incoherently because maybe at the time we weren't ready for certain types of conversation, but now we can go through this a lot differently. And don't forget, even with this series and being locked in with the series and with us, we even have other things that you can look at as far as recordings. We have it on YouTube or on Facebook, but recording and on the podcast, you can look back and see a series called Genesis Revisited. And when you look up Genesis Revisited, you'll discover that we've actually gone through chapter 1 and chapter 2, and we actually hit it differently as far as creation and even as far as geographically, where is the Garden of Eden, things of that nature. So if you're looking for things like that to put with the teaching that we've been doing, you can feel free to do that and be part of that. And thank you in advance for doing that and being and being inquisitive. And of course, if you have more questions, comments, and concerns, let us know. I think our Q&A session is going to be this Sunday. So you can feel free, if you have questions, comments, or concerns that you'd like to add or bring up, feel free to join us then. But let's go ahead and get started. Looks like we finally got all this in order. So let's go ahead and get into this. This is my Bible. This is my sword. And this will I trust. For Yahshua is Lord. No sword of God shall ever be heard. For this is my Bible. And this is Yah's word. Acham Yechavach. Aman, which is in Yahweh's Shem, his name is authority. Amen. We give all honor and praise as always to the Most High, Yahweh Elohim. We give all praise and honor to him for my wife, the Honorable Amma, who lives a life that's able to be honored. Thank you to Secretary, Ministerial staff, moderators, SOC, Lottie Dottie, everybody, first time listening, one time of many, whatever the case might be. Thank you for being on. Also, too, it's going to be a little difficult. Got different setup today, so if it takes me a minute to get to your question, comment, concern, if I just miss it, please forgive me. Just trying to set up best we can and do the best with what we got. So I do apologize if we miss you. It's not intentional. It's just us trying to do the best that we can once again with what we got. Oh no. I think I'm gonna lose Facebook. Y'all ended up on the wrong signal. Yep, you ended up on the wrong signal. I don't know if it'll refresh correctly or not. Okay, never mind. There it goes. All right, so that should work. So hopefully they'll see us on Facebook. All right, so thank you for joining us on TikTok, podcast, Facebook, YouTube. Shalom. Early Shabbat Shalom if I don't see you before or later this evening for the live session. All right, so thank you all for being on. Appreciate love you all. Let's go ahead and get into it. We're going to start at Genesis chapter 2 and verse 10. Also, to everybody who said that they're coming for the Memorial Day meetup, especially if you filled out the form. I'll try to remember everybody else who didn't, but especially if you filled out the form, you should be getting the text message and everything with information from last night's meeting, as well as if we have your email, you should have already received an email regarding the address for the hotel we're looking at doing. We're trying to see if we can get at least 10 spaces to be saved for us. We talked about the pricing and everything yesterday. I'll try to remind everybody of that in the text message that I send out. If you have questions for us, you can reach Sister Renee at soc.secretary082@gmail.com. That's SOT secretary 082@gmail.com. So if you have questions, comments, or concerns for us, or would like to get what I'm talking about, if for whatever reason you're saying you didn't get the email, feel free to reach out. She will take care of you to the best of her ability. If you don't get to her by a certain time today, we ask that you respect her and her family. Of course, they observe Shabbat. So if she doesn't get back to you, or if she doesn't even get back to you today, just wait a little bit, or you can even feel free to reach out to myself, and I'll help you out the best that I can. All right, but let's go ahead and get ready to get into this word. Once again, I got a little difficulty in seeing, so I'm behind the 8 ball a little bit with that. But thank you all for being on. How you doing? Uh-oh. Yep, I can't see it all on here. Is it Tamika, Keith, Minister Stephen, Sister Knight, Sister Joy, uh, Daddy's boy's servant. Okay. Brother Dwayne, Sister Michelle, Minister Tracy. Oh, Facebook is working fine. Oh, okay. Okay, cool. Well, I can tell. It said that you guys didn't have any signal, so I apologize. Yeah. A lot of the times it says stuff I can't ever tell. That's why I say I can't ever tell what you guys see or don't see. It'll tell me one thing and you guys are fine. It'll tell me something else and you guys aren't doing so well with it. So, but thank you for letting me know. All right. How you doing, Big Brother Thomas? I think I saw Brother Craig. I TikTok, you guys are the furthest away. I think I see Minister Jenny. I'm for real, I'm guessing names. Frank, Jennifer, Alyssa, Trevon, right? Rodney, Sister Greta, Bold Classic. If I miss you, once again, just charge it to my head, not to my heart. I'm having a tough time. I think I saw Sister Monica. I think I saw Bruder Charlie. Right, but please forgive me. We'll do our best. Okay? But let's go ahead and get into this. So Genesis chapter 2, verse 10. All right, this should be where we left off yesterday. It says, a river went out of Eden, to water the garden. And from thence it was parted and became into 4 heads. The name of the first is Pison, or Pison, that is, which compasseth the whole land of Havilah, where there is gold. Okay. Next one up, and I believe you can find more out about that in Ecclesiasticus. But anyways, let's keep on going. Where there's gold. Verse 12, and the gold of that land is Tabah, right? It's excellent gold. There is bdellium and the onyx stone. And the name of the second river is Gihon, right? The same is that compasseth the whole land of Cush, or what now now is known as Ethiopia, right? But Cush, and Cush by the way, slightly a little different lining than Ethiopia, but nevertheless, river, same thing, right? And then, and the name of the third river is Hiddekel. That is it which goeth toward the east of Assyria, and the fourth river is Euphrates. Verse 15, and Yahweh Elohim took Adam, and put him into the garden of Eden to dress it and to keep it. And Yahweh Elohim commanded the man, saying, of every tree of the garden thou mayest freely eat, but of the tree of knowledge of what is righteous and evil, thou shalt not eat of it, for in the day that thou eatest thereof, thou shalt surely die. And Yahweh Elohim said, it is not Tabah, right? He says, La'at Tabah Adam Bad. Yahweh Ashad Bara at Adam at Ayazar. Or it is not, he says that it is not Tabah, or righteous, that man would be alone. I will make for him a helpmeet for him. Right? Matter of fact, in Hebrew, as we'll discover, this actually would say, I will make for him a helpmeet before him. In other words, to even go before him and have certain things done, certain tasks done. We'll get into that in a little bit. Verse 19, and out of the ground Yahweh Elohim formed every beast of the field and every fowl of the air, and brought them unto Adam to see what he would call them. And whatsoever Adam called every living creature, that was the name thereof. Adam gave he gave the names to all cattle, and to the fowl of the air, and to every beast of the field. But for Adam there was not found Ayazar, there was found no helpmeet for him. And Yahweh Elohim caused a deep sleep to fall upon Adam, and he slept. And he took one of his ribs, and closed up the flesh in the stead thereof. And the rib which Yahweh Elohim had taken from man, made he a woman and brought her unto Adam, right? So he made for him Iazar, right? But we call now a woman, wombed man, out of his womb also a man with a womb. Verse 23, and Adam said, this is now bone of my bones and flesh of my flesh. She shall be called woman. Now, let me rewind back because that's not what he actually said. We'll talk about the Hebrew interpretation that should be correct. The proper interpretation goes like this. Verse 22, and the rib, which really what came out of the side, Yahweh Elohim had taken from Adam, he made Iazar and brought her unto Adam. Adam Asar, and Adam said, this is now bone of my bones and flesh of my flesh, right? She shall be called wife because she was taken out of husband. That's actually what it would refer to. Verse 24, therefore shall a husband leave his father and mother and shall cleave unto his wife, and they shall be one flesh. And they were both naked, the husband and his wife, and were not ashamed. I'm going to read that last verse one more again, and then we finish reading for right now. And they were both naked, the man and his wife, and were not ashamed. So nakedness is not sinful, right? However, there's shame when you are what? When you are not in Yah's will. So, well, let's go ahead and finish and get into the verses that we just read. You may be seated in the presence of the Most High Yahweh. We're continuing this series called Barashayat. And as we go through this series, we're learning quite a bit about ourselves, about Yah's will. And as we said, when you learn about Barashayat, you're really going to learn about the beginning of things. How you doing, Auntie Marion? How you doing, Dr. T? How you doing, Sister Tia? Brother TJ? Once again, have a different setup, obviously. Wasn't able to get outside where we wanted to today. It was closed. So doing the best with what I got, trying to make a last minute setup. So I cannot see everybody the way that I normally would. I'm going to try my best. I'm probably going to miss a lot of comments, so please forgive me. If I'll try to pause every once in a while just to kind of be like, look through. So when I'm pausing and I'm looking through comments or whatever, scrolling through, feel free to, if you notice I haven't got to yours, I don't see yours, or I don't come back to yours, just let me know. It is not intentional. I'm just doing the best that I can. But we started at Genesis chapter 2, verse 10 today. We'll more than likely start at Genesis chapter 3, verse 1 tomorrow. We've just finished reading about, we spoke somewhat yesterday about Adam's creation, soul, spirit, body. And we started today. Yesterday, we also talked about Shabbat and resting and what the word work actually means as far as occupation here. So when we see this word work here, it's a different word, right? The makavalav is different than what we usually think about as far as Aragorn, meaning a different type of work. So here, Yahweh gets out of his occupation to allow space for the person who's going to now take on that occupation, still under him as he goes back to the throne, but now somebody else is there to till the ground and do all the things and watch over what Yahweh himself has made for us, right? So we ended up talking about Adam and Adam's creation, and now we talked about how Adam was made in the earth realm, but then he's placed in the Garden of Eden, not just in Eden, but there's Eden, and then there's a Garden of Eden. And so we kind of started there today in verse 10, where it starts giving us now we once again have gone over this in our Genesis Revisited series. So if you want to go there for a little more information, I'm not going to go as in depth here since we've already done so in times past. However, we do want to make sure we hit as many, all these verses and hit a little bit of this stuff. So we're being obedient to the assignment. So when you get to Genesis chapter 2, verse 10, it's actually something that causes a lot of riff and different type of seminary Bible colleges, different sects of Christianity, different followers of the way, different branches of Israel, if you will, where there's a confusion. There ain't confusion. There's a fight in between these rivers. Some persons, especially those who are non-believers, will say that this is actually something that disproves the Bible, because it shows that what the rivers that are used must be incorrect, because those rivers exist in places, if their names are still proper today, or even if we look at ancient names for these rivers, they're too spread out, or there's no way that Eden could have fit inside of there, or the Garden of Eden. So just to kind of put this out there, you have to always recall that the Bible does agree with a concept called Pangea, right? A theory which really the Bible declares as fact. So we wouldn't consider it to be a theory. But if you're not aware of what Pangea is when the earth used to be together, right? A continent is, by definition, a large landmass completely surrounded by water. So technically, there's not 7 continents. There's only 4, at least above water, because you have North America, South America are connected. That's one continent. Australia is by itself, 2 continents. Antarctica by itself, 3 continents. And then Africa, so Europe and Asia are all actually peninsulas, because they're all attached to each other. Therefore, you would have a 4th continent, right? But even if you were to go underneath the water, all of these continents are actually connected. So therefore, you could say they're one. But somebody would say technically, you can get us on the technicality because they're above the water. But there's technically, only 4 continents by the definition they give. But once again, all of them really together is one. Well, Pangea is something the Bible talks about, as far as if you go to a name, the second son of Avda, or who we call Hebrew, which is where we get the Hebrew language out of. That's because Hebrew spoke Hebrew. So whatever he spoke is the language he spoke. So we call it Hebrew. Well, the same thing. That same person, rather, he has 2 sons. The second son is Peleg, or Peleg, P-E-L-E-G, in most of your King James versions of your Bible. And it's going to tell you, when you look up Peleg's name actually, it refers to when the earth split up. So after the flood, a few generations afterwards, we see that even though the water has receded, that much flooding causes damage to soil and to a lot of infrastructure, to the point to where now, especially if you don't forget that it was not just rain that rained down from the heavens, right, or from heaven, right, but also there was water that was coming up through fissures and things of that nature. So the earth had chasms and stuff. Remember, a lot of water under the earth. The earth doesn't even have rain until the flood. Water is coming up from there. So even as much water as there still is under the earth, there was a whole lot more flow going on. And so all of those things kind of break and burst. While that's going on underneath, there's also water's coming down from on top. And that's how it floods, right? If you even read in Enoch, if you read in the Chronicles of Noah, if you read in Genesis, if you read in Jasher, you'll discover that all those things are happening simultaneously. So, so the earth ends up splitting up after that. But before that, it was all together in one piece. There was one earth, right? Even showing, we've said this before, even showing how sin doesn't just affect the human being, right? Sin also affects those who are, or anything connected, especially those that are supposed to be under human authority. So if the earth, right, is something that man's supposed to look after, and man sins, even the earth becomes affected. Right, we see this with pollution and stuff all the time. Man does different things and does things that can be sinful in the environment. Well, then also we deal with pollution, right? We deal with, too much access to the sun's rays because of things that we do. We deal with animals that are taken out, and therefore now there's always a problem, and they're trying to put this animal in to take its place, and this animal actually does this, that, whatever, which actually messes up even further. And then they have to, because we've taken away natural order, right? We've taken away natural order. So you're dealing with the same type of thought process, right? You're dealing with the same type of thing. And shalom to everybody coming in, by the way. Once again, if I don't address you when you're coming in, I have a different setup than normal. So TikTok, you're like kind of far away as far as my vision is concerned. YouTube, I have to like do weird stuff around the steering wheel to see you, even though for the most part, you should just only see the steering wheel. Facebook, right here, and podcast. You guys are far away, but prayerfully everybody can hear us and see us. Okay. Just wanted to say shalom, peace to everybody coming in. So, so when you look at this stuff that's going on in the order and the structure, right? And how you doing, Sister Shirley? Springtime. Anybody that I miss coming in, by the way. Brother Aaron. Um, oh, okay, you're Finland in the house. Okay, somebody from Finland listening in. How you doing? So, but yeah, so you'll see that there's a lot of things that are happening in persons that are affected, and the land is affected when sin happens. And so, before the flood, everything was in one area. I can't say all of it, but there were, the Bible does describe like islands or things that we would call islands, stuff like that. But as far as a continent, like we have the mindset of a huge, vast continent, everything was together as one. And then once the flood happened, things peeled off. So when you look at these names that they say were so far away from each other, if you actually go back to the Pangea concept, we can actually see that even if you look at the tectonic plates and we see how they've shifted, if you were to actually put them back from where they shifted, you can actually tell that all of these rivers that are talked about, they all line up again. Right. And the way that the rivers flow, it doesn't say that all the rivers it's talking about are making the outskirts of it. It says that was a river that was passing through to make sure everything in the garden was watered, right? And it says that the river that passed through the garden then went into like kind of a fork situation and broke off, right? And then there were rivers that came from that. So even in the description of it, a lot of persons are looking for things that don't necessarily make sense. They connect. Not all of them are being used as something to shield it, right? They connect, but they're connected for watering purposes more so than they are for protection purposes. And I don't know if I've even done such a great work, in all honesty, in times past at even kind of teaching that, but that's more so what it is. A lot of persons kind of come from a perspective only of how did they go around it. But if you read carefully, you'll see it's not telling you how it went around, it's telling you how it watered, and it's telling you what flowed through and then how it broke off. And so these rivers would have been connected. And somebody says, well, that doesn't make sense. When the earth moved, how do you move a whole river? But, if a beaver can move a river, to think that Yah couldn't move it, or to think that the earth, when it moves, water still can't be connected, especially if you're talking about it being just, all you got to have is ocean to river, right? If it's going from the seas or the ocean to the river, then it's apparent. Or the ocean, excuse me, to the river, then it's apparent like all you got to do is connect with the ocean. If you connect with the ocean, you still have a river, right? Or you connect to the sea, if you will, right? So that's I just want to kind of address that we kind of have that thrown in. So Adam, as we talked about yesterday, Adam is created in the earth. Then he has a home built for him to make sure he's managing, and everything that comes out of him that multiplies, and everything that's in that garden, he's supposed to be responsible for making sure he takes care of it from that home base called the Garden of Eden. Garden also meaning that it's guarded, and now it gives you exactly where that garden would have been. So if you do your research, this kind of takes away a lot of places that persons say the Garden of Eden exists. There's a lot of persons who will argue about the existence of the Garden of Eden, right? There are a lot of, excuse me, TikTok. There's a lot of persons who will argue about the existence. How you doing, Brother Ali? How you doing, Tamika? How you doing, Sister Carla? And they'll say that the Garden of Eden was here. It was in the United States of America. It was in South America. It was in Central Africa. It was here. If you do the research, Eden, which Eden is vast. So Eden really, when all these things would have been together, more than likely Eden stretches like to South America. Remember, all these places were attached. So like South America through Africa, through, Australia, even Madagascar, that would have been, even though it's Africa, but Madagascar, which would have been connected. You have India, you have Babylon, or what's now, now we know is Babylon, back then would have been, but all these places because of the earth and how it would have been. And then eastward would have been where the garden was, right? So so all of Eden was not there, and the garden, it's talking about, you have lines and stuff going from Cush. So if we're talking about east and stuff, we got to talk about we're talking about Cush, right? Now, remember Kush, they call it Ethiopia. Now, persons try to use this and go, well, Ethiopia is Africa, right? But no, we're talking like Eastern. So we're talking about where Kush actually is. So the most, even if we're trying to push the boundary, the most we could push it now is to say, especially because we have river lines, right? So we know where the rivers are, right? But even if you were to try and go outside of that, which is us being sinful, but if we were to even try to say, let's go outside of that, then where the rivers are place, I'm sorry, outside of where the rivers are placed, we just want to go Kush. The furthest you can go is South Sudan. The furthest you can go is, and really that's not even correct because but we'll do that. Let's go South Sudan. Maybe you can talk about the southern part of the Congo, maybe, but really like not even down, not to that part, stretching over there. You're talking about Kemet, not all of Egypt now, but Kemet, and where the rivers would lie and stuff like that. It's a different lineup. So you still have to start thinking east, and once again thinking other countries that would have been aligned in. So the Garden of Eden is huge, but Africa, which doesn't exist yet as a continent, right? Keep that in mind. Africa, which doesn't exist yet, but Africa, in its state as as part of a supercontinent, if you will, right, or the Pangea, Africa is a piece of Eden, right? And the Garden of Eden is westward, and really we're looking at like northwest. So we can't go too far south either. So a lot of persons will say like, well, Africa is the Garden of Eden, or the Garden of Eden was that's not so, right? It was westward. And then when somebody says, well, see, that's where we are, we need to go back there because that's the garden. The garden, remember, part of the definition of Eden, which was guarded, the Garden of Eden, part of the definition was it was a delightful spot. It was a spot. It was where Yah dwelt, right? It was a place where his spirit resided. It was an open door. It was peaceful. When Adam and Eve ate of the fruit, they were kicked out of the place that was guarded, and this place was taken from mankind. Now, somebody says, well, but that's still where it was on the earth. True, but even though that is where it was on the earth, guess where the tree, right? Because the garden and the tree are taken, right? We're kicked out of it. Adam and Eve, so-called Adam and Eve, Adam and Isaac, they're kicked out. And when they're kicked out, they're taken to a place, or I'm sorry, they're kicked out where they have to till the land, stuff like that. They can't gain entry. And then when we see, where is it that we see the tree of life? Well, we look for the tree of life. Again, we find it in heaven. So we find the tree of life in heaven. You see? So if the tree of life is in heaven, the tree of life is in Eden. Eden is a place that we're kicked out and nobody can find it. Well, yeah, you're not going to find Eden because Eden is not just as simple as, oh, it's a physical place, but Eden is the presence of Yah. It's like when we have the tabernacle and we move the tabernacle. The tabernacle is something that as you move it, it goes from place to place, right? But at the same time, it's only the tabernacle and only as great as it is because it actually represents the Most High Yah, right? But if once it's moved from a place, the Most High Yah, you can say, yes, the tabernacle was there, but the tabernacle has been moved, right? Or like Moses, they went looking for Moses' body. We know Moses' body. We know where it was buried. We know, and we know we know where he passed away, and we know where the fight for his body went. But his body was taken. You won't find his body, right? Why? Because people will try to worship his body. So there's a lot of different things that are going on, but so hopefully you're catching my drift as far as the Garden of Eden. We know where it was. The Bible is very specific about it. We have the rivers and everything. We know what went on with Pangea. That being said, somebody who's still looking for the Garden of Eden on earth today, you're not going to find it, because the garden, a guarded place, the delightful spot where Yah resides, an open door for his will to be done, etc., etc., you're not going to find that on earth. Right? You're not going to find it. It's gone. Man lost access to that garden, to that guarded place. So anybody who's teaching you to look for it, or anybody who's looking for it, I'm just trying to tell you, biblically speaking, you're not going to find what you're looking for. Okay. If you say that you find it, if you whatever, I mean, hey, to each their own. You're going to have to disprove what the word says, because that was taken. The garden was there. It was created. So just like the land was there, Eden was there Adam was created, right? Eden was already created, but then but a garden in Eden. The Garden of Eden was a home for Adam and Adam's perfection. When Adam and Adam's wife, right, are disobedient, they get kicked out of the home. The home is no longer for them, no longer for mankind, right? And you can't access this home again until the second Adam comes and allows you to come in. He, in fact, is the door, right? He is our peace. He lives in a delightful spot, this and that. So really, when the second Adam comes, now we have access to Eden again when heaven meets earth. Revelation chapter 21, 22. So that's something important to catch out of that. I won't go super deep past that, but it's important that we catch that, because there's a lot of confusion, there's a lot of argument where persons are trying to say, oh yeah, the Garden of Eden's here, the Garden of Eden was here, the Garden of Eden. No, the Bible's very specific. It's very clear on where it was. It's also very clear on the fact that it's no longer here, especially when we start getting into other chapters to where we hear anything about the tree of life. The tree of life is no longer on the earth. The tree of life is in heaven. So when the new heaven meets the new earth and you're allowed to have access to the tree of life, we will do what Adam and Iazar, or so-called Adam and Eve, did not do. We will make sure that we actually go to the tree of life and eat from it. Because that is one thing that's very interesting, is that you can be in the presence of the tree of life, right? Remember, we talked about this yesterday. All the stuff that Yah made was pleasing to the eye, right? Including the tree of knowledge of what we so-called knowledge of good and evil. All the stuff was pleasing to the eye, right? However, they didn't eat of the one thing that guaranteed eternal life, and possibly would have gotten rid of the tree of knowledge of good and evil forever. Right? They decided to eat. They ate. Right? It says that all the stuff was pleasant to eat. Eve says that they have access to all the stuff that they want to eat. It's an all-you-can-eat buffet, but they never ate of the tree of life. And so sometimes you have to be careful too, because Yah and his bounty has made so much. And sometimes we want to eat this and eat this and eat this and eat this. Be careful that you don't eat around your blessing, so to speak. I hope that makes sense, right? But be careful, right? That you don't eat around your blessing. Right? In other words, Yah has given you all this great stuff to eat. He's given you all this stuff to be able to do. He's given you blessing upon blessing upon blessing. But he told you, if you eat of this, this is guaranteed eternal life. If you rock with this is guaranteed eternal life. If you're obedient to this thing right here, this could be the thing that really gets you moving. But we're so busy trying to get everything. Just because Yah created everything doesn't mean that he wants you to partake in everything, or at least partake in everything that's there. Yes, if Yah created, Yah created woman, and there's many women that are all over the place, right? But he created woman, and when he created woman, wombed man, right? It's awesome, but guess what? Not everyone is for you, right? Not everyone that passes through the street is for you to think about in a perverted way, or to do perverted things with, or to try to holler at as if they're this, that, whatever. How you doing, Elder Select the Ninth, right? So same thing. Not every man that exists, right, is for you, right? There's a man, there's a man, there's a woman, there's a wound man, etc., etc. There's somebody who is there that Yahweh himself has made just for you, right? There's a house that's yours. Not everybody. Everybody talks about, oh, if I could have somebody. Not everybody's house is yours. Not everybody's money is yours. Not everybody's car is for you. Right? Same thing with the Most High. Like or same thing with this, with fruit, right? That comes from the tree of life. And so, it's interesting that Adam and Eve could have lived in such a place and never once ate of the tree of life. Had all these different things that they ate of, but never ate of the tree of life. Right? I see you, Brother TJ. Yeah, we share breathing with trees and stuff like that. So even in that sense, we eat of them, right? And don't have to necessarily even eat off them. But Yah made all these things that are pleasing to the eye. So always have a place in mind. If you're not careful, you can be in a position to where Yah literally says this is a blessing just for you. And it's interesting that they fell into temptation. They went and decided to do their own thing, and they decided to listen to the serpent on something that was pleasing to the eye but wasn't for them, and never had listened to Yah about something that was pleasing to the eye and for them. As far as, like, here's the mandate, here's the hint: on the day that you eat, thereof you shall surely die. But also on the flip side, on the day that you eat, you shall have what? Eternal life. Right? On the day that you eat of the tree of life, you're guaranteed eternal life. And yet you don't eat it. And when you keep denying, or you keep waiting, or you keep trying to figure out a reason why not to, you keep saying this one's okay, or I'm all right here, or I don't need to go this, I don't need to push towards the one that God said. And then all of a sudden somebody comes by, and one that's pleasing to the eye that you know is not for you, but you'll go ahead and eat of that one rather than eat of the one that's the tree of life. How you doing, Brother Jermaine? And please check out Brother Jermaine's clothing line and everything that he's got going. If you like some of the things that you see me wearing, sweatshirts and stuff like that, and some of the shirts with the tassels and things of that nature, please feel free to support. And thank you, Brother Jermaine, for all that you do. So yeah, we must recognize, what's going on and who we are, whose we are. Praise God. And recognize what's going on. Baba Kasha, always, brother, big bro. So, as we continue, right? As we continue, so we get past that, and we start talking about Adam or Adam. Now, once again, Adam means man. So if you are mankind, especially those of us that exist today, we all come from originally Adam. Even if you talk about any kind of mixing of any other kind of man that existed, we didn't really talk about that in Genesis chapter 1. We talked about it in our Genesis Revisited series. But yes, here we do uphold the belief that there's other types of man that exists. First of all, because we have something called generation and generations. So the generation of heaven and earth is made before Adam is made. Now, some persons don't rock with this, and I get if you're somebody who's new here and maybe never heard me talk about this before. It's not something I kept secretive. If you've been with us long enough, you already know where we stand in this teaching. That being said, Adam, man, is not the same man that's mentioned in Genesis chapter 1 verses 26 to 28. He is a man, and he is made after the image of Yah, but he is not made in Genesis chapter 1 verse 26. He's made in Genesis chapter 2. Is it verse 4, verse 5? And there's a separation there, just like there's a separation where there was earth and Lakia, or earth and firmament, and that's the main thing we're talking about, Genesis chapter 2. Well, then Genesis chapter 1, once you get to Genesis chapter 2, verse 4, we now start seeing introduce Yahweh Elohim. And remember, we talked about this yesterday, how you're going to see, and Moses here is making the point to talk about personal, right? Personality, somebody who has the personality of the Most High Yah, somebody who's going to lead and guide, right? So Adam, man, right? He means man, and also even Moses later on will say that Chava, or Eve, is the mother of all creation, right? This mother of all creation is because she's married to Adam, and they're the persons whose seed, who's Noah and his family, are going to survive. That being said, there are other persons married in to us, right? And so you'll see different things that are in our DNA. You'll hear all the time somebody says something like, "Oh, this seems like this is an alien race," or this is that, or whatever. There's a lot of families and a lot of nations that didn't make it past the flood, but there are nations that are mixed in, right? We only talk about Seth and Enos, and I'm skipping some. I'm sorry, Seth, Enos, Enoch. I just skipped like two. Forgive me. Methuselah, Lamed, etc., but we don't talk about their wives. We talk about Shem, Ham, and Japheth. We don't talk about their wives. We talk about Noah. We don't talk about his wife. Now, his wife is mentioned in Jasher, by the way, by name, but I'm just saying we don't talk about them, not just because of only what's looked at as patriarchal structure or things of that nature, but also we don't look at them or talk to them or talk about them even because of the fact that it's not really passed down, or at least a lot of the books that have their names and have more information about them are not as easily found for us nowadays. But you'll discover that Obviously, there's persons that were married in, including even Cain, who did not do what the Bible never says it, nor do any of the books of the Bible say it, nor do any of the lost so-called lost books say it. But there's a belief system through some of the books that we know to be not be lost books, but to be fallacies, like the book of Adam and Eve, or the Chronicles of Adam and Eve 1 and 2, or something like that, and some other ones that are written. Even one of the books of there's 2 books of Thomas, one of which is just a bunch of verses that somebody kind of threw together and has no order or structure to it. Another one that actually talks about Christ and talks about how Christ actually was like killing persons off with his power and stuff, and being very sinful and things like that. And persons were actually afraid of him. There's a lot of weird places that we get this information from, but nowhere in your Bible where you see that Adam and Eve, so-called Adam and Eve, Adam Iazar, nowhere will you discover that they actually gave birth to a daughter. And so Cain and Seth, Abel didn't have the opportunity, unfortunately, but Cain and Seth, when they took a wife, they took wives of existing families, right? And there's nowhere in Scripture where Yah indicates at all that he's okay with husband and wife being sister and brother, right? Nowhere in Scripture. Now, somebody will get lost in that. Somebody will say, "Well, hold up. What about like Abraham? Right? Didn't Abraham say that Sarah was his sister?" Yeah, he lied twice out of fear. He was afraid that somebody was going to take his life because Sarah was so beautiful. So he said, "Tell him that you're my sister." And then when he was confronted about it by Pharaoh, right? When Pharaoh realized he was getting cursed and he was getting all these plagues upon him and his family because of Abraham's lie, and Abraham having the promise on him, which speaks volumes, by the way, about there's going to be a promise on us, and so these plagues are going to end up having us be released again, right? But that being said, at the moment, Abraham and Sarah, and he's like, "Why didn't you tell me?" And he said, "Well, I was afraid." But he still lies. He says, but she's my half sister. She's not my full sister. She's my half sister. He lied though. And what's happened over time is persons have like used this to tell a lie that basically like, you know, Adam and Eve or a bunch of other persons, by the way, they were actually related, or persons could be sister and brother. Like Yah never approved of that, including with his creation. He never approved of that. Adam and Eve, or Adam Iazar, Adam and helpmate, man and helpmeet, right? They are specifically designed to make sure that they're watching over the entirety of, they have a different responsibility. They're over the entirety of the earth, and they're supposed to watch over the garden. Any other kind of, and so this is when you get into all these different discussions as far as humanity, humanoid, all this stuff or whatever. You'll see that that's not, the Bible doesn't declare anything. So you can't have Cain having a sister, but the only reason that comes up is because persons say, well, Adam and Eve are the only man that existed, but there's mankind and then there's man. Adam is a specific man. So in Genesis chapter 1, verse 26 to 28, especially verse 27, in Yahweh's image made he him. Him is talking about a spirit called man, the spirit of man. But then male and female made he them. But then he comes back after he's gotten out of his occupation. Remember we talked about that word work? It's a key word. He comes out of his occupation. He comes out of his work. And what does he do? He creates somebody to take over the work. So he rested. He went into Shabbat. And now comes somebody else to do the work. Who is that somebody else? The Adam he just created in Genesis chapter 2. I know for some of you this is brand new. I know some of you have been around me, have heard me say this before, but I don't mind, right? I know it's not Sunday Q&A day yet, but at the same time, that might be kind of heavy for somebody. So questions, comments, concerns on that, because I know that can be a big deal for somebody, right? But if Yah says brothers and sisters can't be together as husband and wife, that he didn't start off with something that he's against. So I'm putting out several different things to try and help you to see it's not as clear cut, but I get it. It is an argument, but that's because over time, persons have said, hey, Adam and Eve had to have had sons and daughters, although nowhere in the word does it say that Adam and Eve had sons and daughters, which means that if there was somebody who Cain and Seth married, that was a daughter of somebody else, not a daughter of Adam and Eve. If so, then it's sin. And Yah wouldn't create things to be sinful. Touch and agree. How you doing, double OG, triple OG? So are there any questions, comments, or concerns on that? Because I know that's a big argument in our communities. Not just in followers of the way, not just in Hebrew Israelites. That's a big, anybody who's biblical, anybody though who studies the Bible and even doesn't believe in it, whatever. All these groups, that's a big point of contention. And so I don't mind, you know, pushback on it if you never heard it. So yeah, so when they talk about Bigfoot, so obviously we're getting into a place of we're getting to a place of definitely theory, if not somewhat mythical as well. But Bigfoot or missing links, we'll just put it like that. There's so many missing links that they keep saying, no, this is that. A lot of those are theoretical. You have to be careful too. When somebody says they find a bone of something and they say it's something, giant Tropithecus or something like that. They just throw terms out here. You have to realize that a lot of these they don't even have skeletons for. So even in that sense, before I go to another place, like even if we just kept it scientific, nobody has a skeleton for anything that could be close to Bigfoot. What they'll do is they'll say that they found a bone, and this bone means that it must be from a particular type of animal, and they'll make up a whole animal. So, for example, this happens all the time. There's many dinosaurs. Now, we know that dinosaurs exist. We have no problem with the existence of dinosaurs. Bible has no problem with it. It talks about it. That being said, you'll have stuff with dinosaurs like there's a lot of dinosaurs that nobody's actually ever found anything, but they say they find a bone. And by the way, when they're saying that they find fossils, you know what a fossil is, right? Is everybody aware? Like, we probably should agree on what a fossil is. You said you heard that they had twins and girl and a boy. Yeah, so that's from the Chronicles of Adam and Eve or something like that, which is like a total fake. And if you read it, you'll discover like real quick off the bat that it doesn't make sense. It doesn't match what the Bible says. It doesn't match what other lost books say. It's a total fabrication, right? But yeah, that's where persons get that from, that they were twins. But once again, that's somebody trying to explain how if they believe that Adam and Eve are the only beings, then they believe that daughters, they had to have sons and daughters. So they said that for every son born, there was a twin girl born, right? It's kind of a made up one. Not kind of, it is. It's a made up book. We actually know when that book was written and when it was started, and we don't know the exact person, but we even know the family that started that. So that was something that came out in the Dark Ages, and something that has no validity as far as our belief system and our culture, not just ours, but even other believers. But once again, if you're talking about Bigfoot, stuff like that, or whatever, like going back. Oh yeah. So for example, there's no you know how people say megalodon exists. Nobody can find. Nobody's ever found. I don't care what museum you've ever been to or what aquarium you've ever been to. Nobody's ever found megalodon skeletal structure, right? And I was trying to say, do you know what a fossil is for this reason? A fossil is not bone. A lot of persons might not know that. You go, no, fossils bone. No. Fossils not bones. We use the term bones because it's just easiest to go ahead and say that, but a fossil is not bones. Somebody, a fossil's not bones. That doesn't make sense. No, look it up. A fossil is not bones, right? A fossil is actually, what happens is supposedly, right? Supposedly, because fossilization can happen within minutes. A lot of persons don't know that either. But basically what happens with fossilization is supposedly when they say, well, let's just stick to what you were taught in school. Supposedly over millions of years, bones sat there and they fossilized. But what fossilization actually is that the bone begins to deteriorate. And as the bone is deteriorating, other living organisms or other things that are there, or even including stones that take a long time to grow, they begin to fill in the gaps, right? So at the same time that the bone is withering away, there's other things filling in the gap. So by the time the bone is completely gone, you have this fossilization. You have something, basically a cast, a natural cast that's taking place of an animal's bones. So when somebody says, we can tell by the bones of the fossil that such and such was this and such, hey, you got to be careful with that, because you're like, that's not even the bone. We're doing a lot of guesswork, but we don't know this stuff. So somebody just mentioned something, we just roll with it. And thank you for the love. How you doing, Chua? So hopefully I'm saying that correctly. I forget the proper pronunciation. So, so first of all, there's no such thing as bones that are fossilized. If a bone is fossilized, it means it's been replaced. Okay. So if they say that they found a woolly mammoth, which I'm not saying they haven't, I'm just saying if you're told they found a woolly mammoth with something inside of it, that's not technically a fossilized woolly mammoth, right? That's not a living fossil, because if it's fossilized, there would be no part of the woolly mammoth left over, right? So they're talking about something completely different when they're talking about fossilization. That being said, now, so when you're talking about fossilization, even when we're saying either the bones or whatever, what we're calling bones or what's left over, what they'll do is they'll say, I found, so megalodon, going back to megalodon, they say they find something and they say it must, they found this huge thing, it looks like a shark tooth. Then they go to a shark expert and they say, hey, if this was a shark tooth, this is theoretical, right? So that's right. Fossilization and preservation are two different things. So they'll go to the shark tooth. With the shark tooth, they'll go to somebody who's supposed to be an expert in sharks. And they'll say, if this was a shark tooth, if this was in fact a shark tooth, which shark tooth would it be? And somebody go, wow, well, you know what? If it was a shark tooth, if I put it here, wow, you know what? That could be a shark tooth, right? And then they build a whole body around it. And they say, megalodon existed, thus and such, but they've never found a skeleton or even a fossil that shows anything outside of just, a megalodon tooth. So is it possible, especially with more oxygen, with less earth all over the place, with more fish, with less fishing for different things, including sharks and stuff like that, is it possible that you could have had a few sharks here or there that, grew really, really big? Is that something that happens in nature? Do we see a Goliath pop up every once in a while? Is there a Wimby, Wimbenyama? Is it Vincent Wimbenyama, whatever, playing in the NBA, and he's 7'6", whatever he is? Is there a Manute Bol 7'7" that pops up every once in a while? Of course, right? But somebody, and by the way, that's if that is a shark tooth, or if you've ever heard of Titanoboa. If you don't know about Titanoboa is supposed to be an anaconda on steroids. Like, anacondas can grow about 30 feet or so. Titanoboa supposedly might have been able to get to like 200 feet, right? But how did they come across Titanoboa? Have they ever found a skeleton or remains or fossils? No. What happened with Titanoboa is they found, some guy found a fossil or something like that. He had some rocks. He liked them. He kept them. One guy came into his shop. He sees this thing, and he ends up taking it from the guy. And he says that this looks like something, but it can't be. He said he's a snake expert, and he goes, this looks like the vertebrae of a snake, but it can't be because it's way too big. So then he takes it to another guy, and he says, if this was, here we go again, if this was the bone of a snake, or if this was one part of the vertebrae, which one would it be? And the guy agrees with what the guy was thinking on his own. And so the two of them say, yeah, we think that we found Titanoboa. And then what do they do from that point on? They start saying Titanoboa must have lived in these parts. And Titanoboa, when you see whole paths and stuff, this isn't because somebody's walked through it, or because, bears and big animals have been through there, or even dinosaurs could have been through there. This isn't because human beings might have made paths. They say, oh, a whole bunch of these ancient paths you'll actually see is because Titanoboa was slithering back and forth. Hyper theoretical, right? It's a theory, and somebody will try their best to make that theory live. and while, excuse me, even if there was a Titanoboa, it wouldn't have me not believe there's a creator. That being said, there's no evidence of Titanoboa outside of that, right? Somebody made up a whole thing that they now teach in schools and you have to learn and say it's correct in order to get your A, because somebody, decided that they were going to go ahead and make that up. Yeah, folklore, right? So you have to be careful with a lot of that. We're told and taught a lot of different things regarding those items and different things that pop up. So kind of the same thing even with Bigfoots and stuff like that. Now, where it does get interesting, though, Sister Tia, I think you would have wanted to kind of ask the question about Bigfoot. I promise I didn't forget about you. Where it does get interesting, right? You said you call it make believe. I get you, right? Where it is interesting though is when we start talking about, forgive me, where it does get interesting is when we start talking about bloodlines, and we start talking about different things that they call humanoid. So, for example, many persons, you know, might not have ever really researched it. You just kind of went with whatever. But, you know, cavemen or Neanderthals, right? Which, by the way, the word caveman is a really bad word because there's a lot of men who lived in caves over years, including even in the Bible. There were men who lived in caves, and they were not bad, were not non-humans. They just lived in caves. But that being said, though, right? Neanderthals, for the longest time, were looked down upon because so-called white people, according to so-called white science, so-called white people were not supposed to be the Neanderthals, right? So so when there wasn't, white people were supposed to be, remember, we're talking about evolution in this regard now, right? And in evolution, what happens? In evolution, especially most of it, if not all of it really nowadays, but most of it is supposed to be Darwinistic. Okay? So if Darwin's book, written in 1859, is the standard. Always don't never let anybody lie to you about the fact that Charles Darwin was racist and why he wrote his book. Because Charles Darwin's book tells you the name of the game. Why evolution needed to be something that was put in there. It was to continue the white man's burden and to continue manifest destiny, right? Also goes in 1859. It's right when you're about to see a big war fought in between America over chattel slavery using capitalism, or capitalism using chattel slavery. But you're about to see a big fight happen in 1860. You're already seeing the Kansas Wars happen, 1856 to 1860, right? And so you're already seeing a bunch of stuff go down, a lot of things happening. But when he writes his book in 1859, the book is entitled "The Origin of Species by Means of Natural Selection." This is what natural selection means to them, right? It's what it's the origin of species by means of natural selection, or semicolon, or the survival of favored races in the struggle for life. That's the name of the book, right? The survival of favored races in the struggle for life is the second part, is the on the other side of the semicolon, on the other side of the or. So he's saying, I'm writing this book to show you why natural selection is necessary. And if you don't get the hint, even in the title of the book, I'm going to tell you that natural selection, the way nature selects things, is that there's certain persons, certain people who come from certain animals. And these people who come from certain animals, they have just like the animals before them outlived certain other species. There will be stronger human beings who outlive other human beings. And so because of that, we must realize that there are races that are favored in this thing we call life and the struggle for it. Okay? So a lot of persons don't think about this stuff when it comes to evolution because we're not taught that part, or that we're supposed to just park that somewhere else and act like that never happened. Pay no attention to the racism behind the curtain. Right? Right? And thanks you for being on, right? So we're not supposed to talk about that. So persons learn about evolution, but nobody. The reason why parts of evolution don't make sense is because in order for evolution to make sense, you have to be straight up racist, or at least what we think the term racist means. You see that? So you can't talk about evolution without talking about Charles Darwin, his family. You have to get into um, uh, Linnaean doctrine. If you don't even know who Carl Linnaeus is, it's gonna be difficult for you to have this conversation. But yeah, we're talking about evolution, especially from Darwin. Darwin is writing all these things to prove his point that not just all white people, because remember, there's different versions of white people too in his book, but there's certain white people that are supposed to be at the top, and they should survive and out survive anybody else. That's the point of his writing. So so you have to, when you talk about Bigfoot, it gets interesting. So for example, let's go to Neanderthals, right? So Neanderthals was something that everybody said. And by the way, if you guys want to, we can go to the Natural History Museum, or we go to the Bible Museum. We can go to the Natural History Museum and walk around there, and I'll show you what I'm talking about. They still have it on display, although it's known to be false. You can go there and still they talk about, oh yeah, this Neanderthal and this happened and blah blah. But the reality is that Neanderthals were thought to be stupid, dumb. Oh, Neanderthal come up with fire, me fire, this and that. They didn't have a language, all this stuff, until they realized that when they started doing DNA testing, Neanderthal DNA is not in us. It's in a few of us. I guess you could say like everybody maybe has a 0.0000 point something somewhere, maybe, right? But we don't carry Neanderthal DNA. So when they did that, they said, wait a minute, right? If we don't carry Neanderthal DNA, they said if we don't carry Neanderthal DNA, then, or if black folk don't carry Neanderthal DNA, then who does? And when they did the research, the persons who carried it the most were so-called white persons. Now, what they did then is they had to go back and look at stuff, and guess what they admitted? Because they finally looked for it in the first place. They realized that all the stuff they had told you, that all Neanderthals had long sloping foreheads and all this stuff like that. No, Neanderthals were so-called white persons. That's it, right? So Neanderthals never were stupid or dumb or slow. Neanderthals were never these persons who walked around with Fred Flintstone type stuff on them. And Neanderthals were never persons who just had big feet just for the sake of it. They never were. Neanderthal women were never these women that were just ugly walking around. No. But it wasn't until somebody had to admit, because for the longest time they told you it's got to be persons of color that are Neanderthals because we're the persons on top. And then when they found it out, they had to say, oh, well, actually Neanderthals are intelligent and they have actually had language and they actually made clothing. And it's like they try to make you out to be nothing. So once they figured out it was them, then they had to tell the truth. These were human beings, but they'll still try to teach you. Right when we go to, if for those of you who are coming, if y'all want to roll with this, we're gonna give. I was telling everybody we're gonna give at least one of the days where you guys get a few hours, kind of do whatever you want to do. But if y'all want to roll with me during those few hours or whatever, we can go there, and I'll show you. I walked my son through it and stuff. Elder Am and I walked through whatever. They have the whole thing, and they take click on this, and when you click on it, goes through all this long description stuff, even though they know it's not true. They know it's not true, but they'll still do those things, right? Or when they found out about certain other things where they said, oh, this is this humanoid, blah, blah. Come to find out those were Asian folk or so-called Asian persons. Or come to find out this one that they found that they said had hair and this and that was Koreans. And come to find out this one they said this and that, those were Native Americans, who were Incas and stuff like that. Like there's so much stuff that's there. So even when you get to Bigfoot is an interesting thing. I don't think they ever will find what we are looking for when we're talking about was it Sasquatch or something Sasquatchicus or whatever, whatever it's supposed to be, but it's very interesting, when we come across that. But a lot of this stuff that they're looking for, you have to even go to, like, when they keep looking for this stuff, you have to ask yourself, I'm not trying to ever label somebody as crazy or something. I think that's whack. But that being said, sometimes it might be somebody misheard or misrepresented something, or there's a lot of myth that persons live by, or sometimes somebody literally not realizing that something as simple as you're looking for something that doesn't exist comes from a very racist thought process. So Pseudo or lazy science. Yeah, so it's. I'm sorry, Dr. T. I saw you said they can't be. I don't remember what I was saying at the time. But there's a lot of stuff that's there, and a lot of propaganda and all these different things that's going on. So you just have to you just have to kind of remember that in certain things, and realize that there's a lot of lies being told, and we have the ability, praise Yah, nowadays in a manner that we didn't always have. We have the ability to be able to go back through things and look at stuff and look at even what their own lies have determined and stuff like that. Even when it comes to even when it comes to like eugenics, even same eugenics, basically same thing, right? They were trying to use eugenics to try and say why black folk were Neanderthals and this and that or whatever. And then even with them doing the whole Lucy thing, right? Lucy has become something that has to be a human or humanoid, and had to be an ape, and had to be like, they say it's the oldest version of a human being, this and that. And she was found in Africa. It was like, no, well, yeah, but the oldest human is found in Africa. Like the oldest civilizations, even ours, even if you are Abraham, like, and you go to Canaan, where Israel is or whatever, even when Abraham goes to Canaan, guess what? He's still technically like where Canaan was and where Israel was and where Israel is even to this day. It's considered to be Africa. Just because somebody tried to move a part of a somehow, some way, tried to literally in front, like, and they didn't even they inundated us so much they didn't even have to hide it in plain sight. They literally verbally moved Kemet, Egypt, Israel, right, all these places, and said, yeah, these are Middle Eastern. They're not African. you know, like somebody literally did that and has us so inundated and with lies and foolishness, and has us relying on these lies and foolishness so much, and has us trying to chase these lies and foolishness with grades and stuff that they give, that literally they right in front of your face in real time told you that Egypt doesn't belong in Africa, and persons just went with it. Told you that Iran and Iraq don't belong in Africa, and persons just went with it. Told you that Yemen can't be African. Remember this, what we were talking about earlier with the we were talking about with the what was that? We were talking about earlier with the continents, right? Africa, Europe, and Asia are all connected, right? And by the way, everybody knew this because Europe wasn't even a thing. Europe just meant anything that belonged to Rome. And then Europeans wanted you to believe that they were romantic, right? And that they deserved to be able to be over others. So they started saying that they had this place called Eurasia. Now, persons knew about Asia, right? Matter of fact, here's something interesting. When you read in your Bible, even in European or English versions of the Bible, have you ever heard Europe mentioned? If so, you got to be in like a very modern Bible, right? When you read the Bible written in 1560, 1590, 1611, you never hear anything about Europe, do you? Because it didn't exist, right? Asia Minor, we know Asia Minor, we know that's a thing in the Bible. We can see that, right? And even that is depending on what version of the Bible you're reading. But Asia Minor, okay, like we see that, right? Greece, we see that. Rome, we see that, right? Ashkenazi, we see that. Celtic, we even see that. But we don't hear anything about Europe, right? Europe just used to mean Europa, just used to literally mean anything that belonged to Rome. So Europa could stretch into Africa, into Asia, into so-called Europe, whatever. Right? Anybody who belonged to Rome, you were European. Now it's become a continent. Now remember, the definition of a continent is supposed to be a large landmass completely surrounded by water. Right? Europe, even when it was Eurasia, it was a peninsula. But over time, especially when you have certain persons that started taking over, all of a sudden they say, no, this is a continent. It doesn't even make sense because even if you're talking about size wise, shoot, like a lot of these so-called nations and countries and stuff, you could travel through them in a matter of hours, on in a matter of hours on a train. You could do Switzerland and hit France and Germany and stuff. A lot of that stuff in one day. You can't make it through from the United States of America in 24 hours by car, but you could do it in one day. Matter of fact, if you go to Europe and you're going from place to place to place in Europe, it doesn't make sense to do it by plane at all. Maybe take a plane over there, but after that, you better get a vehicle. Just ride or get on the train because everything's that close. But in real time, persons getting, basically using the information that's been sold for generations. In real time, somebody just said, oh, yeah, that's the Middle East right there. And nobody thought twice. Like persons don't think about it. If you were to try and take a plane from Egypt to Israel, you would be able to get there in less than 20 minutes. There's planes that do go from Egypt to Israel and vice versa. It take you 20 minutes. That's how close. Right? Y'all be thinking this stuff is far away. It take you at least, what, 2 hours? 2.5 hours to get from Georgia to Washington D.C. or Georgia to Baltimore. 3 hours to get from New York to Georgia, something like that, or New York to Miami. But you can get from Egypt to Israel 20 minutes. Right, but we don't really like have a thought process of that. We really recognize um, how close we are, right? So a lot of persons aren't thinking about that, and really how throughout history until the last 200-300 years, nobody ever would have thought of Israel not being African. Definitely wouldn't have thought of Israel as being Asian. I mean, for real, wouldn't even thought of it as Israel at one point because Israel was gone. And the Palestinians that are there, they have more right to it, I guess, than others, but ultimately it's not technically Palestinian land either. But if anything, you would have thought of it as Palestine. Wasn't until the 1940s persons even thought of calling it Israel again, even though we knew where Israel was. Yeah, they engineered the Suez Canal in the late 1800s to create the Middle East. Well, that, and also for commercial usage. But yeah, that. But even with that, they got rid of it so that boats could go through. But if you really look at it, once again, so they're still connected. That's why I said you can technically, we have to say there's continents because you were saying what's above the water. But look at the connection underneath, right underneath the water. Right, they only made sure that there's enough so that they can have really, really big ships come through. But there's still land right there. And if you were to look at the land connection, it's still connected right there. As I think I was talking about the other day, the internet, I think we were talking about this last night. We were talking about some more. The internet goes under the water. So when you're trying to connect to somebody in China or something like that, part of that connection is under the water. I know a lot of persons only think about Wi-Fi and wireless and that, but that's only in proximity as far as what's going on right there. But a lot of that stuff is going through wiring still, right? So that stuff is connected, but you'll see, the connection. So the connection is still there under the water, right there. It's still connected. And if you go to Israel, you'll see a sign. It'll say you're still connected to Africa. You're still in the tectonic plate. So yeah, they got rid of the Suez Canal. England did. They're the ones who spearheaded it because it was English. It was English property. Those are the ones who, England are the ones who were dealing with Israel. That's what only reason you call it Middle East, by the way. Anything that belonged to England, if you were East, you were East. But if somebody was like, well, if you're in Japan or China even, and you belong to us, well, you're far East. If you're somebody who's close to us, you're East. Well, what about somebody who's in the middle? You're Middle East. That's where that comes from. It's not even that deep. you know, like they didn't even go through a long, drawn out thing to explain it. They literally just labeled it like, oh yeah, as far as we're concerned, you guys are in the middle of our stuff, so you belong to us. You're in the middle. You're Middle East. That's the only reason why we even use the term Middle Eastern. Empirical data, empirical mites, those persons who were over so-called Middle Easterns, and they told them like that's what you're gonna call yourself. And to this day, we still call them what these so-called masters called them. Remember, master. That's why I always try to tell persons too. Don't get caught up on some of this stuff. You know, master means teacher. So we don't want to hear master because we don't want to hear we think master said, but master also means teacher. So when you have a master, you got to be careful. Who's your master? Who's your teacher? These persons taught you and taught me, right? And they taught us to believe in stuff that's not real. So when you talk about Bigfoot and you talk about all this stuff, like it's a lot of stuff that's not real. You know, it takes us a lot of different places. Amen. But getting back to Barashayat, Genesis, chapter 2. So after we talked about the geography and Pangea and where the Garden of Eden was, and I think we talked. Oh yeah, we were talking about Adam and Eve and their children, and did they actually have, daughters, and where did those things come from, etc. Once we get past that, um, we get to, and I'm not sure if I answered your question, Sister Tia. I hope I did. I started rambling about a bunch of stuff. But Genesis chapter 2, and we get to a point to where Adam is now placed in the Garden of Eden, right? So we get to the place where Adam meaning man, Adam meaning man, he's placed in the Garden of Eden. And as we said, what was it yesterday, that women are attracted to works? Well, let me also go a step further, right? Not only are women attracted to works, but Yahweh is attracted to works. As a matter of fact, he's so attracted that before Yah gave Adam a woman, he gave him a work, right? So before Yah gave Adam this womb man, he gave Adam a work. Literally, he gave him this work, right? He said, I want you to do thus and such for me. He said, you need to do these works before you start worrying about all this other stuff. And that's something that kind of escapes and eludes us, honestly, that work is that important to the Most High. You know, persons devalue works. Okay, cool, thank you. So persons devalue works, but your works are what Yah's been looking for from the beginning. Before Adam made Ayazar, or before he made Aisha, before he made Chava or Eve, Adam was given works. It's his works that helped him to even find a need for a wife or Ayazar or help me. You see? Amen, Carolyn. Right? You see? So Adam was given work before he was even introduced to his wife. And this is one of the things that society should do, right? And at least in our culture. You guys do whatever you want to do, right? But in our culture, we're talking about Israel, we're talking about biblical, we're talking about kingdom, we're talking about Yahweh. It is the responsibility of us to train up husbands who are pre-qualified for wives. They're supposed to be given inheritance, already be in their business, right? Or at least be doing things of their father's business. And within their work, they've learned even more why the wife is necessary. And so then when they find a wife, right, they're willing to leave their mother and father and cleave to what they have found. You see that? Right? Like when you talk about mama's boys is a societal issue. You know why? Now, I'm a mama's boy. My mother passed away a long time ago, and who knows, maybe if she hadn't passed away, I would have been more of a mama's boy to where you guys think that I'm like some of what y'all call mama's boys. But mama's boys is a conditional thing, right? There's a condition in our society. We just automatically label the person, but it's also a condition, right? A mama's boy syndrome, if you will, because this is syndromic, right? It is societally, there's something going on to where men have never been raised. Because remember, you're supposed to raise a husband. You're supposed to raise a father. You're supposed to raise a man. What happens is we raise boys, and then we say, when you get to a certain age, you're a man. What is that age, by the way? I mean, nobody really knows. I mean, is it when you're 18? I mean, maybe 16, you can ride in the car behind the wheel by yourself. Is it when you're 18 because you can, you know, go to war? Is it 21 because you can drink legally? Is it 23, 24 when you probably finished with any kind of college commitment, at least getting your baccalaureate? Is it in your 30s, when you've actually at least kind of sort of get on your feet for the first time, and maybe by then, if you're doing really well, can get a house? There's no context of when manhood happens because there's no context of what a man is, because there's no context of what it takes to master manhood, to have somebody teach manhood. We don't care about what's being taught. But Adam was given work before he was given a wife, right? And so boys should be trained through their works on the need even for a wife. Yeah, war was the real reason for 18. Somebody say 13, so well, whatever, right? But I'm just saying, like, we don't have, so because we're not culturally correct, and we're not trying to make sure that we influence our sons by our standard or by Yah standard, there really is no standard for men. Men don't master manhood. Before you find a wife, you should master husbandship or husbandry. Right? Before, yeah, amen. But Valentine's Day, how you doing, Sister Aslan? Yeah. So before all this stuff, you should master husbandry. And that also means that before a woman is found, she should master being a wife. She should have masters. He should have masters, teaching them what it is to be this, right? So Adam, who was made perfect, remember, there is no sin yet. So we're talking about perfection. I'm not talking about what you want, right? Because you shouldn't have wants because you don't have lack, right? Yahweh doesn't allow you to lack. I'm talking about perfection. There is no sin. Right. There is no sin. Oh, okay. Oh, okay, Brother Craig. You want to know if we have time at the end of it, we can talk about Valentine's Day a little bit. I wasn't going to talk about it at all, to be honest. Well, I don't know if I was or it wasn't, but I was. It just wasn't on the top of my mind. The only reason I even think about it is because I have a son born the day before it, so he was supposed to be born on Valentine's Day, but he was born 13th. That's the only reason why I even think about it. But at least anymore. Um, but yeah, we'll see if we have time. But um, but yeah, so when we talk about all these different things on where were we at? I'm sorry, got caught up in the comment section. My bad, y'all. Uh, oh, yeah, yeah. So we were talking about Adam. Adam had to work before he had a wife. He had to work before he had a so-called girlfriend. He had to work before he was out here trying to figure out. Matter of fact, he was in perfection. Adam wasn't even trying to search. He wasn't trying to date. He wasn't swiping right or left. Oh, today's your mom's born day. Okay, well, if mom's listening or she listens later on, if you want to listen, or what are we on YouTube? We're almost 90 minutes in. So we're like 89 minutes in. If you want to rewind or whatever, tell mama I said happy born day. Yam yasalav to everybody. Peace, peace, peace. Right? But uh but yeah, so Adam in perfection He was perfected, but see, it wasn't complete. It sounds really weird, right? He was perfected, but it wasn't complete in this incident, right? There was still something being worked towards, so to speak. But Yah had to allow Adam to get to a place. So for Yah to get to a place where Adam recognizes the need for wife, because Adam's got to have a wife of his own free will, or at least acknowledge that he needs a wife of his own free will. So Adam is given work, and he does the same thing that you think Yah would have done. But remember, Yah has rested from his work. The word work here meaning what? Occupation. See? You see, so Adam is still working. Adam is working where Yah used to work, and Yah is saying, okay, Adam, if you work it, you'll realize that there's something that comes from you that you need to extend who you are. Just like Yah is spirit, but extends who he is even to a place to where Adam can exist in the physical realm, right? Well, then Adam, you're going to work to extend who you are to where something comes out of you called I guess help me. So Adam has work. And by the way, you know that really never. I'm not saying the wife shouldn't come before work, right? But hopefully, I hope this comes across correctly. I know we're in the red pill age, and the sprinkle sprinkle sparkle sparkle age and all that stuff. Um, Work for a husband, work for a man is always going to be important. And it's one of the things that you can't really you try to shut off, is not going, he's not going to work that well, literally, right? Um, Not just toil, we're talking about work. Um, a man, a man of Yah especially has a work to do, and it gets him ready for the day. It gets him ready even for his wife, because part of my greatest work is my wife. So the greatest stuff that I'll do will be the things that I leave for her, right? Before my son, the greatest things that I can leave for my wife is, are things that I'm still working towards, right? There are things that I work towards so that her life is easier. There's certain things that make me, you know, that make me move, and it's based off of work. The better I am at my work, the better I am for my wife, right? Yeah, it's well natural provision. Yeah, so being a provider, natural providing, um, just to be honest, just within our nature. Can I share a secret with you? Can I be adult? Uh, you know why men? Men, I'm about to give away the game a little bit, but sisters, I'm about to show you something. You know why, brothers? One of the most fearful things a man that is for a man is that he won't be able to. What's the best way I could say this? That he won't be able to get it up. I guess is because that he won't be able to work. It's not just right, like he won't be able to work. He won't be able to. Science shows that he's dying. He's supposed to be able to do that till the day he dies. And so, if he can't do that, he can't work for you. It's not just he can't work you, so to speak, but he can't work for you. He's supposed to make you feel great. He's supposed to do things for you. He's supposed to be healthy. He's supposed to be whole. He's supposed to make sure. And so, it's one of the worst things that can happen. In his mind, there's nothing worse. Just about. It really takes a lot out of you when stuff like that happens. So his work is important to him. Anything that he's supposed to do, he looks at it through the prism of work first, just about. Even video games that you're like, why are you taking these video games so seriously? Work. He looks at it through the prism of work. It's a high score, right? Right? It's a high score. All these different things, are things that are, like he's even in sports, right? They yell at these persons. It's a game. It's gladiatorial sports, right? These persons are basically $1 million slaves, But still, like, they yell at him as if it's works. It's a whole lot of stuff having to do with work. He can look through the prism of everything in his life through work. If he can't work it out, that's, and even with men, it's real hard for us in general to talk to somebody about what we're going through, because in order to do so, we have to admit that we can't work it, and we're designed to work. So if I can't work it out within my own mind, part of that makes me a failure, especially the way that I'm raised. By the way, not just raised by men like that, I'm raised by women like that. You're a man. Shoot, you a teenager now, you a man, basically. You should be figuring this stuff out. Why are you worried about asking me? Doesn't matter, whatever. You don't need nobody to tell you nothing like that. This whole "I don't need a man" turns into "you don't need nobody to tell you." No, no, like, it's okay. But Adam was given work. That's how important it is to Yah, and that's how important it is to man, to Adam. Remember, Adam means man. It's that important to man that he was given work before he was given wife, and he was given specific instructions. He was told, keep the garden, guard it, watch over what's guarded. Literally, the place that's supposed to be guarded, the Garden of Eden, watch over it and guard it. That's what you do, right? And sometimes this even is talked about to be a bad thing. He's jealous. He's this. He's that. We've already talked about this word jealousy, but he's this. He's too jealous. He's blah blah. But I'm supposed to guard, and that's why if we're not careful, men can actually be very guarded to the point to where they will not share much of anything. Because part of my work is to guard anything that comes in this garden. I wasn't created in the garden, but the garden was made, and I was given an assignment with this garden to keep it. Anything that comes in here is supposed to be guarded. So yeah, there's certain things I don't want persons to know. So I have to really trust you as an Adam. I really have to trust you as a man to let you into the place that I'm supposed to guard. Because not everybody just gets in here like that. Like that's how we're wired. Before I have a wife, I'm wired like that. Adam was wired like that already. He was created to be like that. All the stuff that the man's not in touch, with his soul and stuff like that. I was a soul and a spirit in a dirt body before I had a wife. I'm going somewhere with it. Hopefully you're seeing. Before I had a wife, I already had these things. And especially we're talking about perfection. We're not talking about now that we're talking about perfection. This is perfect. No sin yet. No death yet. Right? All the things that we just go, a wife is for this, 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 right? Adam was doing these things that I'm telling you, he was commanded to do them before he had a wife. He needs help to do it. Don't get it twisted. But we're talking about Adam is already assigned these things. Adam is told to keep the garden. That also means to keep over the things that are vegetative, or well, vegetation is not even a real thing, but herbs. You guys know vegetables technically aren't a real thing. Vegetables is a way of saying how to eat, whatever herbs and things that you're into. That's why I said that. But he's told to watch over the herbs, to watch over the trees, to watch over the fruit. He's eventually said, name the animals. This means authorize them. Because whatever you name something, you authorize it to be. Right? If you don't believe me, you guys have seen all those shows and stuff that they do all the time, and somebody's the father figure on the show, and they say, we can't have a pet. We cannot have a pet. And then all of a sudden he finds out that they have a pet. And he says, no, we got to get rid of it. And they say, no, we can't get rid of Pooh Bear. And he goes, Pooh Bear, you gave it a name. Oh, now we got to keep it. Why? Because when you name something, you authorize it. Right? So Adam is being given an assignment here. Right? Adam is supposed to represent the Most High on earth. Adam talks to Holy Spirit all day. That thing in your Bible where it says Adam spoke to the Holy Spirit in the cool of the day, it literally is saying Adam had conversation with Holy Spirit. That word cool there means spirit. So Adam talked to Holy Spirit all the time. Adam has assignments. Right, already. He's already has his assignments. He's already doing what he's supposed to do. And yet, in all these things, what are the commandments that God gave in chapter 1? He gave it to the animals, and then he gave it to mankind, right? And Adam's going to have the same assignment. What are you supposed to do? Be fruitful, multiply, replenish, and subdue, right? And the first two, be fruitful and multiply. I guess you could say he was fruitful, spiritually speaking. But if you're going to be fruitful, you got to have seed. And if you have seed, how you going to have the seed? Grow into anything. The seed can't go into any ground. It can't go into the womb. It can't go into a garden. So Adam is naming all the animals. And it's in the midst of naming them, he realizes everything has a helpmeet. Everything has Iazar except me. You catch that? He realizes that everything that he's named, everything he's authorized, everything that's of Yah's will, everything in perfection, right, has a helpmeet except him. And once he comes to this realization, it says that's when the Most High Yah says, I'm going to put him to sleep. But Adam had to come into agreement that it was necessary for him to have a helpmeet of his own free will. Y'all didn't just create. See, because y'all could have, right? If it was within his infinite wisdom, he could have said, I'll just make a male and a female, and they'll just do whatever, and they'll be under me, and that's it. But no, this one that's going to be more like him than anybody else, this one that's going to be the one that heaven and earth, right, that sin, that all the stuff that the earth itself is going to be affected by, he says, I'm going to have Adam come first and give him work that makes him like me, and it makes him see through the prism I see through. And in his work and in his development, he will realize the necessity of his wife, right? It was his works that even showed him this is what a wife is. This is what a wife is to this animal, or what the ayahs are. Excuse me, wife. He doesn't call it that yet. A help me. This is what a help me does for this, and this is what a help me does for that. And by the way, if you want to break it down further, this is what help meets do in nature, because you got to have trees, and in a lot of your trees, you have to have male trees and female trees. Right? Male trees don't just give fruit. Male trees give the seed. Once the seed is given, or well, I'm sorry, male trees give the pollen or the sperm, right? And once that's there, once that happens, then you can have either fruit, or then you can have seed, right? Which basically is coming from the fruit. And then you can go ahead and have birth and rebirth over and over and over again. Right? Adam realizes that everything Yah has created, every living thing, has a helpmeet except him. And once he realizes the importance of it, then Yah says, okay, let's put you to sleep. And when he wakes up, now your Bible says nowadays the rib, it used to just say something from within, or something from within the womb area, something from the inside, which is why one of the reasons why the term womb man is applicable, or woman, because it's a compound word, womb man. That's what it is. WOMB-MAN. Take away the MB and put MAN. Matter of fact, if you look at some older spellings of womb man or woman, you will discover that it's WOMMAN. So the B is what's taken out, but it's kind of overkill, so they just take the M and the B out over time. But a woman is called a womb man or a woman because she came from the womb, or at least the inside of man, the only thing that man can say that he gave birth to in that regard. Also wombed man or woman because this woman was came from or has the ability to have seed deposited in her womb or in her garden. Interestingly enough, man, right, was made outside of the garden and then impregnates, right, on the inside. Or I'm sorry, man was made outside the garment, then placed on the inside of the garment, and then out of him comes life, and he guards that which is multiplied in there. Well, in the same regard, man's seed is outside of the garden and is placed inside, and whatever he places inside and grows and multiplies, he is responsible for guarding it. and keeping it. Make sense? Right? So he is responsible for guarding and keeping it. So if you're talking about the man and the wombed man or the woman, right? He deposits the seed from the outside, just as he was made outside. Then the garden was made to be a home for him, right? Well, we are made, right? And then guess what? The garden, our wife, was made to be a home for us, including things that are multiplied. So now, not only is she a home for us as far as multiplication, she is a home for us as far as my daily walk, my daily life. I can talk to my wife about things I can't talk to others about. I'm supposed to be this bulletproof person out here that everybody, knows the real me as Superman. But it's okay for me to go ahead and say, you know what? Even though I'm not really Clark Kent either, I can be, or reverse that. I'm sorry. The real Superman is really Superman, but he can't reveal it in everyday life. So he's Clark Kent a lot of the times. But when he's really who he is, that's Superman. But he can be who he is around his wife all the time, right? It's important that we catch this. So the works of for us as men is crucial. It's huge. It's a big deal, right? These works are a big deal, right? Like we work and realize in our work how much a wife is there. That's why when a wife shows up, that's why you train him to find a wife and you train him on what it is and you train him to be a husband, because when he finds a wife, he's not going to just be looking for anybody, especially if you trained him up in the way that he should go. So when he grows old, he won't depart from it. When he finds a wife multiplies, right? But a wife also is a safe place. She is, in fact, his Eden, and he guards her. Therefore, the Garden of Eden takes place, right? A reflection upon Yah's creation, right? Like the Eden is guarded, right? My wife must be guarded. She's the garden, and she must be guarded. Anything having to do with her must be guarded. I must make sure that certain things, I take certain, I follow certain protocol, if you will, to ensure that my wife is always guarded, to ensure that she doesn't have to go through certain things, right? I'm doing my best to ensure that she's getting a positive experience, that whatever's being planted in her, spiritually, physically, etc., is something that can multiply. I'm making sure she has a safe place. I'm hearing her when she says she likes or doesn't like certain things. I'm hearing her when she says certain things need to change or don't need to change, whatever the case might be. She is my safe place. She is my Adon. She is my Eden. I am Adam, husband or man. She is Adon. She is Eden, to be guarded by man. Right? When do we have to start getting 11 out of our homes? Actually, it's close. Uh, yeah, it's very close, actually. I'm sorry we didn't get the dates. I got to talk to somebody today about that. There's something that we're going to be doing special in the evenings this year. But I'll talk to the person real quick about it today. But I don't know. Somebody do the math. 40, it's 40 days. Um, it's 40 days before Passover, right? Or Passover being the 40th day, I guess. So if we were to go, Passover is May 11th, or sorry, April 11th. So 1, 2, 3, huh? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4. So we're supposed to start March 2nd, I believe. March 2nd. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's 35. Then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 days. Yeah, March 2nd. So first Sunday of March should be when we're removing the leaven from our home. Now, if you're doing I guess the day before. No, it's still correct. If you're starting at 6 p.m., if you want to be safe, I guess you could start March 1st. But if you 6 p.m., it should be 6 p.m. March 2nd should be the first yam. Should be. All right. How you doing, Joy Boy? Um, Sorry, you guys. Different setup today. So, but yeah, so we should be aware of these things and how they're working and how they're how these things happen to come into being. We oftentimes are not, so we have a lot of issue with it, or we have a lot of problem, unfortunately, that comes up. But these should be things that are really mandatory for us. These should be things that are these should be things that we are getting all the time, and we should be thinking about all the time. But we don't. We really don't look at things properly. We really don't look at things the way that Yah would want us to. And so, since we don't, we end up with a lot of crazy stuff, a lot of foolishness, and we forget what Yahweh has for us and wants for us. Amen. But uh, anyway, so where we at? Where we at? Yeah. So but yeah, so Adam in his work he finds the need for his helpmeet. And I keep saying help me because we go to woman, which is a modern term. We go to, more modern term, but woman, boom, man. We go to wife. We'll say Eve, even, which is her fallen name. If you don't recall, Adam names his wife. We'll show you that in a little bit. But Adam, when he sees his wife, or when he sees his Ayazar is his helpmeet. That's the first thing that she was called, right? A lot of persons don't recognize that or get that right away. The first thing that she was called was helpmeet. And remember, Adam was naming animals, and he realized that everything around him had a helpmeet except him. So the first place that we start is supposed to be, as far as starting as a helpmeet. If you're talking about for a woman, so-called woman or wombed man, first place that we start in the training is being a wife, right? But also, first place we start, sorry, I said first place being a wife. First place we start is help me. You become pre-qualified for wife, but you're created as help me, right? You were created as help me. That's the first thing that the Bible declared you were. The very first thing. The very first thing the Bible declared that you were was help me. Right? Not Eve. Eve is fallen version of yourself. Right? Adam renames her Eve after he threw her under the bus and after he wanted to lord over her. Right? She was Ayazad first. And when he saw her, he then calls her wife. Now, in your Bible, because you're reading a different language, it doesn't say it like that. Your Bible will say that Adam saw her and he said, for this cause will a man leave his mother and father and cleave to his wife. But there, when he starts using that terminology, starts using that wording, it actually says, for this cause will a husband, an Aish, leave his mother and father, his Amma, Abba, and cleave to his wife, his Aishah. So when he saw his helpmeet, he realized his helpmeet, a true helpmeet, right, is actually a wife. And when you have a wife, it actually causes you to be more. You get promoted. So he was no longer just Adam, but he was now a husband. And every son of his that is a son of Adam, kind, mankind, every son that comes out of him, when they find a wife, must recognize that the wife is a helpmeet. The helpmeet has promoted him, and therefore you must be promoted even to be able to leave your mother and father and cleave to your wife. This is why in our culture, this is a cultural statement here for some, right, that don't comprehend all the teachings we've done on it, but this is why we would go into, beloved, let not your heart be troubled. If you believe in the Father, also believeth in me. In my Father's house there are many add-ons, mansions. If it was not so, I would not have told you. I, pre-qualified as a husband and everybody agreeing, have gone to prepare a place for thee, that where I am, you as the wife can be also, right? And so no man knows the day nor the hour except the Father, because the father will send him back to his wife when the father says, okay, we not only agree that you are pre-qualified, but you have prepared a place for who? For your wife. Go and grab your wife, go and grab my daughter, and bring her into my house. And when I show up, you have what? The oil in your lamp, the anointing that's there that was left, right? As proof and evidence that you've been every day making sure that you're ready for your husband's return. See, we're having a whole different conversation, right? Adam is talking about a wife promotes me to a place to where it promotes my thinking to where I've got to prepare a place for her, right? I know how important she is because I was raised in this. A lot of us, once again, we're not raised on this. So we're trying to have conversations about husband and wife that aren't based off of, Yah's will for us. You know, we're literally trying to have conversation about stuff that is not Yah's will for us. So as we keep having these weird conversations, we haven't talked about, you know, how much really we have to make sure that we work. We have to work this and work at it for our wife's sake, for our own sake, for the sake of our children, that they might see this stuff start to manifest itself. Hey, I hear you. Taking one step at a time. Get yourself in order, right? But this is, we haven't been taught this, and society doesn't teach us this. Sorry, how do you do Passover? It's new to you. Well, we'll have teachings on Passover coming up soon. Passover is not until April 11th. We actually have teachings on there, so if you were to go on our YouTube channel and literally type in Passover or type in hashtag find Kofi Passover, SOC Passover, whatever the case might be. We even have, recordings of Passovers that we've done in time past, messages and stuff like that, how to put it together. So you can look it up, but as we get closer and closer, especially by the time we hit, I guess the main thing you need to know as far as, so the question was asked about removing leaven from our home. If once March 2nd hits, which is a Sunday, start preparing to get leaven out of your home, or if you want to have it out the whole period and start using it as a time period, we try to 40 days before remove leaven representing sin. So we try to remove it from our home for those days, and be in a sense, fasting and looking for what God wants us to have. Once you get to April 7th, you're supposed to select your lamb, right? You don't necessarily have to go watch it get slaughtered or anything like that, but you're supposed to select the lamb that you're going to eat. We actually need to get some stuff together. I want to make sure that I think it's Brother Frank, if I'm not mistaken. We need to get the lamb from him, and really he has some other meat. I think he has lamb and chicken throughout the whole year. But I think we're trying to partner up with him. So I think Elder Alma, for those of you who get the package from her, I think she's doing it again this year. It's always like an iffy thing every year because it's a lot of work that goes into it, and there's not really much reward. Not saying, she likes the fact that you guys are doing things properly. I'm just saying there's a lot of work, for her. But I think she's doing that again. So I think she's gonna reach out to Brother Frank, and we're gonna try to get that going so that we can make sure that we have everything together to start processing everything and get you guys your stuff sent to you so you can get it if you're getting it through us by April 7th. But by April 7th, you would need to choose your lamb. We're willing to do it for you, by the way, but this is stuff you can just go to the stores and buy. But you want to have your lamb. You want to make sure by that Friday, April 11th, you want to make sure you have bitter herbs. You want to make sure that you have bread. You want to make sure that as much, yeah, you want to make sure you have lamb, bread, bitter herbs. It is okay to drink wine. I know there's some persons that don't drink wine or whatever, but we would, it's commanded to have wine, actual wine. Don't let somebody tell you that juice is wine. Juice has never been wine. I mean, you can say wine, but it's wine. It's obviously it's fermented. So when people say no, it's just but you can choose. I know everybody's in a different place in their life. I don't want anybody falling off because of whatever. And also too, for those who are vegans or vegetarians, You can make a vegan version of it, but we suggest you follow the law, and on that day at least you have lamb. Um, that's just what the word says. If that's not the case, though, we do put some recipes and stuff out there for vegans and stuff if they like, but it's just, it's best to eat the lamb just for one day. Even if you just eat a sliver of it or whatever, we're supposed to eat lamb on that day. Other than that, we'll have teachings on it that are coming up. Um, but those are the most important pieces. So, but where were we at? I'm sorry. Husbands, right? Um, husbands, where were we at? Okay, so Adam, matter of fact, let's read. So Adam says, for this cause was a husband. When it says a man, he's saying a husband leave his mother and father and cleave to his wife. Right? So verse 23, verse 23, and Adam said, so by the way, it's also important too that we note this. Adam said, right? Adam took on the responsibility. Now, somebody might say, so that means that Yah didn't say, Adam said. True, but we're talking about perfection. So anything that comes out of Adam's mouth is what? I want to see you put in the comments if you can, right? I know I've been roughing me reading these comments today, right? But anything in perfection, if we be in Yah's will, if we be in His law, if we be protected by it, if we're perfect, complete, if we're perfect as our Father in heaven also is, in heaven is perfect, then anything that came out of Adam's mouth is perfect, right? There is no sin yet. See, we have to be careful because sometimes we try to put sin inside. If there's sin, right, there is no sin yet. There is no sin yet. Death has no power yet. They haven't eaten of the fruit yet. Adam has not thrown her into the bus yet, right? How you doing, Stacy? Yep. So everything out of his mouth, how you doing, Ebony, is what? Perfect. That's right. That's right. He was the reflection of Yahweh on earth. That's why one of the reasons why Christ is known as the second Adam. Because what Adam should have fulfilled, Christ fulfilled. Christ fulfilled it to bring his wife back. When Adam didn't fulfill it, but actually entered into sin, his wife entered into sin with him. And by the way, somebody doesn't like that. We're going to talk about that tomorrow. We're going to start getting into that tomorrow. But before somebody tries to hit me with, well, Eve ate the fruit first. Yeah. When helpmeet ate the fruit first, nothing happened. She offered it to her husband, and then both of their eyes were open. Because two were one, and he came first. Right? We're talking about perfection now. Okay, I'm just trying to help. But anyway, so all this stuff is what? Perfection. So Adam said, which is the same as if Yah said. This is why I like to say this when somebody says that they want to do their marriage ceremony and all that. I love to say this part right here. Therefore shall a man leave his father and his mother, and shall cleave unto his wife, and they shall be one flesh. And remember, it actually would have said, therefore shall a husband leave his father and his mother, and shall cleave unto his wife, and they shall be one flesh. And this part right here is amazing. Verse 25, and they were both naked. Now, but here's the kicker, right? So watch this. They were both naked, the husband and his wife, and were not ashamed. Not ashamed. Now, I don't want to get too far ahead. We're going to talk about this some tomorrow. But this helps us to recognize how big a deal it is when it says that Adam and Eve, when they both sinned, when they both ate of the fruit of the tree of knowledge of so-called good and evil, when they ate of that tree, immediately they realized that they were naked. It's not necessarily talking about the realization of it as much as being ashamed of it. We're going to talk more on that tomorrow. But remember now, there's a lot of stuff. There's a lot of parts already going. This is like, what, part 6 or something already of this series? If we go back to Genesis chapter 1, verse 27 and 28, we made it a point to tell you that all the blessings and all the authority and the being fruitful and multiplying, replenishing, and subduing happens for what? Male and female when the two become one. I don't know if you guys recall that, but we spent about 20, 30 minutes, right, not trying to badmouth our LGBTQ plus brethren. However, simultaneously speaking a word that tells truth about who the blessing goes to. The blessing is not for everybody, but it's for those who line up with the will of Yah, including in marriage. Yes, the husband leaves his mother and father and cleaves to his wife, right? And the wife, if you look at the culture, the wife will end up living in her mother and father's, or sorry, in the father's house of her husband, and then eventually them living together. So both are doing the same thing, right? But we can talk about that part a little bit more, but in a little bit. But you have to see that it says that where was I at? I'm sorry. Oh yeah, that they realize their nakedness. So they realize their nakedness. We are ultimately, spiritually speaking, right, stripped naked before the Most High Yah. However, the offering of Yehoshua has covered us so that we are not ashamed. Remember, there's the law of the spirit and the law of the flesh, if you will. We call it affectionately, well, not affectionately, we call it the law of the flesh, right? But the law of sin, the law of the spirit and the law of sin, and you have to be circumcised heart, lawfully have your heart open to certain things, use the law to also remove some of the flesh so that the spirit of the law is always what you get, but not the physical, right? Okay, so we make sure that we have a clean phallus shaft so that the seed, the word, comes out and is impregnated into the womb righteously, so that we are dealing with stuff that's in the spirit and not into the flesh, right? So we are not ashamed. Romans chapter 5, right? We're not ashamed, right? Hope, we have hope, right? It comes from patience, right? And it comes from even us going through some things. Us going through a lot gave us patience, and us having patience gives us hope. And now that we have hope, we are not ashamed, right? We have Ravak HaKodash. We are not ashamed. We are covered. We have even given offerings, like offered up our services, offered up our gifts, offered up our time, offered up our effort, offered up our energy. We're not ashamed, right? At all. We're not ashamed, right? We're not, so because we're covered. I say this all the time. Technically, everybody who's listening to me right now, you are naked. Somebody says, no, that's not true. I got clothes on. Yeah, you have clothes on, so you don't notice it. But you still, underneath those clothes, you still are what? Your real form has no clothes, right? But as long as you're covered, you have no shame. You don't notice. Like, if you have a scar, trigger warning, because I don't know, persons can have different reasons for having different scars, so trigger warning. I'm not trying to make your body, make you feel bad about your body, whatever the case may be. If you have a scar on your abdomen, you don't think about the scar on your abdomen until your abdomen is revealed. It doesn't mean that the scar went away because you have clothes on, right? If you have, I don't know, if you got that line coming down your body, right? You got the line, it looks like it's splitting you down the middle. You don't think about the line every day, but you take your clothes off and you see the line. You might have I don't know, varicose veins or something like that in a part of your body. But you don't think about them until you actually have it to where it's revealed. You are always, wherever you go, there you are, right? But when you're in Yah's will, you're covered, or at least you aren't concerned with your nakedness. It doesn't show to you because you're covered. Adam and Eve, once they come out of Yahweh's will, Adam and Iazar, man and helpmeet, husband and wife, when they come out of what they're supposed to be doing, the first thing that they do is they notice and they realize that they're naked. And not even that, they realize that they become ashamed. Because really, we already read in the Bible, it already told us that they were naked. But they, right, both the husband and the wife, but they were not ashamed. Right? They were naked, but because of them being covered by Yah, and because of them being who they were supposed to be, they were never ashamed. See, when you're dealing with stuff, when you're ashamed, I can tell you right now, it's because you're not covered. I mean, there's a couple times where we can say, okay, that's not exactly what's going on. But for the most part, if you're ashamed of something, it's because you know, either you know you're not covered or you doubt that you should be covered because you know that you did something that Yah didn't really say that you should do. So he might still have you covered, but you something in you says, "Ooh, I'm out here by myself." So what Adam says is Yah's law at that time. That's right. You're not covered. So a lot of persons out here, they're not covered. They doing stuff and they know. They know that they know that they know that, oh man, y'all could really, I could really be in trouble. You ever done something? Real talk. You ever like done something and you know that your life should have been forfeit? You ever had an instance like that? Like, you know, straight up, like, man, I for real, I shouldn't have made it past that. You ever had something like that like happen? You know, you shouldn't have survived that. You shouldn't have been able to make it through the water. You shouldn't have, you know, you got in a fight and somehow, some way, you shouldn't have survived whatever happened. Like whatever the case may be, and you just sitting there, and you trying to figure out what's going on. Well, that when you get in that place, you're going like, even if I made it through, I'm not covered, and it'll make you even if you won, it'll make you rethink some things, won't it? Even if you won the fight, even if you made it through, even if you're surviving, even if you living still, you start realizing real quick, you know what? I need to change some stuff up, don't you? Right? You start changing some things up because you're like, hey, I didn't have to be here. I shouldn't have been here. And just because I made it through doesn't mean I made it through covered. I didn't feel confident about that at all. I made it through. I had a fighting spirit. I did up, but I was not covered. And that's an important distinction to make because a lot of persons do this weird thing that just because they made it means that they're covered. No, no, no. You can make it and not be covered. Now you can survive something and not be covered. But I wouldn't. I wouldn't. I wouldn't attempt to do it again. Like I've done stuff knowing, like I've jumped off of the tops of roofs of buildings and stuff, and seen persons that did the same stuff before and after me break their bones. Just as a teenager, wilding out and doing some craziness, and be like, you know what? And person be like, try it again, try it again. And next year, try it again, try it. You know what? I don't think so. I think I'm okay. You know what I'm saying? Like just because I made it and it was fun. Don't get it twisted. It was fun. And I kind of want to do it again, but statistics show that just because I made it this one time, it does not mean that I'll make it again. You know? So I'll take my, you know, I'll take my chances. And I'm kind of sort of, not to the same level I used to be, but I'm kind of sort of daredevilish at times. Like I'll try some stuff that persons will be like, what in the world are you doing? But you get to a certain age and you're like, yeah, I don't know if I like those. I know I done made it through this and that or whatever, but maybe I shouldn't just be out here doing stuff and I know I'm not covered. I've stolen some stuff. I've robbed, places before. Um, but I don't know if I'm gonna try it, and I've done it just for the feel of it. Just because, can I get away with it? Okay, I made it. I don't know if I need to do it anymore though. I didn't need to do it back then, but I don't need to do it anymore. Yeah, you look back and you're like, oh, that was kind of crazy. I mean, there's persons out there. I mean, you done had unprotected sex, and it could have been a lot worse than what it was. Even if you had a child, but even if you didn't have a child, whatever, it could have been worse than what it was. No need to try it again. I'm just trying, I'm just trying to help you out, right? Like, be covered. And there was no, remember, offerings, we talked about this. We'll find this out when we start going through chapter 3. Offerings cover. Offerings cover. But ain't no need for an offering now because they are already covered. Adam is already covered. Watch this. Really, can we do this? Because remember, Christ is the second Adam. We almost finished with time, I promise you. Christ is the second Adam. And I don't think persons realize this. But Christ is the second Adam, right? So Adam is the first Adam. Christ is the covering of his wife. Adam is the covering of his. Christ dies for his wife. As much as we don't like this because we only think about Adam in the imperfection, Adam sacrificed so that his wife would be here. We only think about how he treated her or mistreated her or didn't cover her or just went for whatever she said. But Adam sacrificed so his wife would be here. Yes, he did. Whether you believe it was something where he went and grabbed something from inside, or he grabbed something from his side, or you believe he grabbed his rib, you don't think that was a sacrifice? Right? Maybe you don't. But Adam did sacrifice for his wife. But you know the one place Adam wasn't willing to sacrifice, and this is where the sin starts coming in. Adam wasn't willing to sacrifice her happiness in the moment so that she would be in righteousness in eternity. And so both of them end up being ashamed because he wouldn't allow himself to say, I won't do something that you've done, and I'll cover you for what you've done. Christ was disciplined enough to say, I'll cover you in what you've done by not doing what you've done. Heavy is the head that wears the crown, by the way. Right? I'm trying to say that again. I hope you got the context of that, right? Christ, hopefully you catch what I'm saying. Christ is the second Adam. That means Adam is the first Adam. Adam was not disciplined enough to sacrifice in one area that was extremely important, which was, I'm willing to, even if it doesn't make you happy, I will not do what you've just done because I'm your covering. And if I do it, you're not covered anymore. Christ, the second Adam, loves his wife so much that he's willing to not do what she's done, realizing that if he does it, then so does she. Literally, Christ is disciplined enough to not sin so that his wife can come up out of sin. Meaning that even when my wife sins, I, as a husband, have the opportunity, responsibility, and the right and righteousness in me to be able to do the opposite of what her sin is so that she might be able to come up out of it and be washed clean. Meanwhile, Adam, right, doesn't have the The one who says, leave your mother and father and cleave to your wife. The one who was in perfection. The one who was made outside the garden, was put inside of it. The one that Yah said, I trust you with this office. I trust you with this work. All these different things or whatever. He's not able to be disciplined enough to say, well, babe, I see that. I see that you're doing that, but I'm not going to do what you're doing because I need to cover you. See, now that speaks, that's heavy. Can we walk a little heavy? Right, that's heavy. That's some heavy steps that we just walked. That being said, right, husbands, love your wives as Yahushua loved the assembly and gave himself for it. Also, too, though, wives, if you talking about you want a husband, are you ready to be with a husband that's not going to do what you do sometimes? Because he's so disciplined, he's such a disciple of the Most High, that he realizes that if he does what you're trying to do, right, then he won't be your cover. That's heavy. It's heavy. I get it. That's heavy. That's heavy. But that's real. See, you got don't become a wife and forget that part. I want a husband, blah blah. You want don't get a husband and think he's supposed to be a parrot now. Right? A lot of persons marry and you just want somebody to be a parrot. Just say what I say. Repeat after me. Say the same stuff over and over again. Yada yada yada. Hey, no, sometimes your husband will have to say, no, we're not doing that because I'm your covering. And if I love you the way that Christ loved you, I'm not willing to do something that would cause me to not cover you. I know we don't want to go there. We don't want to have that conversation. We don't want to talk about that, but that's truth. A lot of sisters aren't signing up for that. A lot of wives, so-called wives, ain't signing up for that. But your husband might have to tell you every once in a while, yeah, I can't do that. Matter of fact, it probably is best if you and your husband have a conversation before you try to look at the fruit. So that there's not an argument. Oh, well, you don't blah, blah. No. Like, I need you to know, even if you decide to do this, I'm not going to do that because I'm your covering. Right? And rather than both of us walking around being ashamed, I'll cover you. You see that? Like, if the wife is ashamed, then cover her by not entering into sin. It doesn't mean, like, Adam didn't have to be boisterous. Adam didn't have to yell. He didn't have to fuss. Christ wasn't out here cussing everybody out on the street corner and telling them that you're not Israel enough, or you a cracker, or you a nigga, blah, blah, and all the stuff that these persons say on the street corners and stuff, thinking that they're doing the will. All you got to do is say, hey, I'm willing to cover you. Look at what happened with the nakedness revealed of Noah. It wasn't that Ham walked in and saw his father naked. That wasn't the problem. That's on Noah. Maybe it's on Ham because Ham walked in the room he wasn't supposed to. I don't know, but that's on Noah for ending up so drunk that you can't even make sure you covered up. The sin with Ham was the fact that instead of covering up the nakedness, you went and exposed it further. If you notice, when Adam sins, Adam exposes Eve. Now he even names her Eve, and he starts saying it's her fault, and it's the woman you gave me, and all this stuff or whatever. But before that, Adam's responsibility was to cover his wife. His sin in eating the fruit. See, if you get it, the tree of knowledge of good and evil is not just only dealing with the fact that they ate of the tree, obviously that, but in order to even get to the tree, you had to basically decide on a whole bunch of sins at the same time. You had to decide you were the same as Yah. You had to decide to be disobedient. You had to decide to touch something that you weren't even supposed to touch. Excuse me. You had to decide to not have the tree of life. You had to decide to go against the will of your father. You had to do all these different decisions or whatever, rather than saying, you know what, there's a law in place. The law in place covers me in so many areas. What is that law? Just don't even eat of the tree. And if I see somebody, even if they're close to me eating of the tree, then it's my responsibility to not eat of it if I love them, because if I love them, I can only cover them now by not doing what they did. If I fall into the same diverse lust, If I fall into the same temptation, if I give up my righteousness as well, then who covers who? Beloved, both of y'all is cussing each other out, and you call me and you say, Pastor Kofi, this mother effer right here. Well, you know what? F them and F their mama and blah blah. Well, you know what? For real, they ain't nothing but a B anyway. Oh, who you calling a B, mother effer? Well, you ain't nothing but a piece of S. And I'm listening to this. Who is the person who covers who? At that time, is anybody gonna cover the other person? That's right. You can't be a covering. Come on, Elder Select Hammer. You can't be a covering if you're not under the covering yourself. You think Yah is covering you when you calling him a B or calling her a B? Who's covered? Well, I wouldn't have, I wouldn't have smacked her, but she was up there, she talking bad about my mama, this and that or whatever, right? Well, you know what, I wouldn't have stabbed him, but he smacked me. I mean, persons it launches real fast. I've been studying some stuff on domestic violence and some stuff that I will not speak on, right? Just studying some stuff on it. Because Holy Spirit told me, like, I've seen some different things, I heard about some different things, recently. Not even necessarily within SOC, but just in general with persons whom I love. And I was like, let me look at this. Like, this is kind of wild. Like, I kind of know where the mindset is. I know a little bit of the psychology of it, but I've never really, made it a passion, like a passion type study on that level. Like, let me put some stuff in to see what persons say and what makes them go do this, and what has persons even go to a level where they take their lives and the lives of their families and stuff like what's going on here. And one of the things that's really odd is that it's not even odd. One of the things is just a tell. What is it? A telltale sign? Is that how they goes? Telltale sign, something like that. Telltale or telltale sign, whatever it is. One of the things is there that is going to be evidence or proof that somebody's moving in a bad direction, even when things are okay. Is that when I look at it, neither person has like a boundary for themselves, right? Oh, it's a telltale sign. Okay, right. Nobody has a boundary for themselves. What do I mean by that? I mean, there's not one person that'll say, out of the two of us, somebody got to bring this down. If there's two persons coming together and nobody, and both of them are always on some, you started, I'm gonna finish it stuff. I mean, it's it ain't gonna take but so much, right? Nobody, yeah, lawlessness. Nobody has anything in them to say, maybe I shouldn't say that about this person. Whether I think this person is a punk or not, maybe I shouldn't test them like that. Because everybody got fight or flight. You put somebody in the corner, even the weakest, most punk individual you swear that you think you ever saw, somebody has something for you. I think it was Fat Joe talked about how when he got shot, it was by a dude that he was bullying, a dude that maybe owed him not even $100 or something. At the most, a couple hundred, but just, he would bully him all the time. But you ain't this, you ain't this, you ain't, blah blah. Try to get on him and stuff, and he would make him scared. And the guy, fearing for his life, Joe said he probably would have never done anything to him, but he was just being a bully. And the guy basically one day, when Joe got him, and thought Joe was gonna push him around and do a little bit of smacking around and stuff, and then leave him alone for kicks, the guy pulled out a gun. Pow pow. Right? Because even somebody who you swear won't move on something, after a while, even just out of self-preservation, somebody gonna swing, somebody gonna shoot, somebody gonna do something. You know, but a lot of persons don't. It's very interesting when you meet somebody. That's one of the biggest things, is those boundaries and making sure that you covered. Somebody has to be the covering, and prayerfully, according to the word, should be the husband more than the wife. And ultimately, the wife will multiply what she sees you doing. But it has to be the husband more than the wife. And Adam wasn't the covering that was necessary in the moment. Now somebody says that's unfair. That's this and that. Well, that's what it comes. That's what comes with being Adam. Sorry, not sorry. That's what comes with being Adam, right? Adam, Adam was Adam was husband. Was husband. His responsibility. It didn't matter to him that much for whatever reason. We don't have. By the way, we don't. I don't want to go too far to where I start opining. I don't really have opinion or can't tell you what I think as far as, well, Adam was just watching his wife. Like, we don't know if he was right next to her when they were having a conversation with the serpent. We don't know if he was, if he at first kind of was like, maybe we should, maybe we shouldn't. We don't know. We just know that Adam could have covered his wife by simply being obedient. His obedience could have squashed her disobedience. And instead of being obedient, he decided that it was more important to do what his wife did for whatever reason. Even if he said, you know what, maybe you have a great point. No, like, she don't have no great point. Adam, before you had a wife, you had to work. See where it comes back in now? Right? Adam, before you had a wife, you had to work. What you said you used to tell people not to fight someone who fears you, because they'll unalive you out of fear. Yeah, be careful. The persons who I'm most afraid to fight is cats that's like 5'3", 5'4". Because that person is looking at me being 6'5.5" and is saying like, yo, like, whoever, I'm talking about male or female. Like, I got a thing, I know certain things I can do against somebody who's shorter than me or whatever, but I'm gonna treat them a lot different, because if look, I'll say it like this. When I was a child and there was a dude who was playing basketball on the court or whatever, this dude was a grown adult. I'm like 10, 11 years old, but I'm really tall for my age. So, I'm not as big as him, but I'm not, a regular child size. And the dude got mad and got upset. My thought process wasn't trying to be like, oh, you know what, I'm gonna just get beat up or whatever. My thought process was, when he started walking towards his car and he got angry, talking about, I got something for y'all. Where I come from, that means only one thing. I don't know if that's what he meant, but I wasn't trying to wait around and find out. Right? Like, they're not approaching stuff the way that you approach. Right? One of the reasons why bullies should always be, especially when we get to be adults and you bullying as an adult. I mean, what are we doing? But children, there's a little bit more leeway, because hey, it is what it is. You can be a bully as a child. You can make fun of persons as a child, get older and realize, you know what, like, that was all stupid, that was all dumb, whatever. But when you're an adult doing this and you haven't wised up to, the more you learn about fighting, those who are fighters, the more you learn about fighting, the more you realize and understand, like, oh, like, I'm not, you know, anybody could get you. Anybody could mollywop you on any day. Like, the best fight that you'll ever be in is the fight that you're never in. You hear me? Right? Like, the best fight. I've had sparring matches with somebody, and I swear I knew I was gonna blah blah, and I was thankful at the end of it. Like, ooh, I'm glad I had my helmet. I got too full of myself in that one moment, and they hit me upside my head. Had that been, and I wasn't paying attention, I didn't have my hand up. I didn't think I even needed to. Somebody gets you real quick and tag you to remind you. Yeah, like, be on your P's and Q's at all times. Have all them I's dotted and all them T's crossed, and somebody will dot you across your I. you know. Like, have all them I's dotted and all them T's crossed, and somebody will dot you across your eye. So it's it's a really weird. But the best fight to ever be in is a fight that you're not in. Those are the best fights I've ever had, are the ones that never materialize. For real, for real. The ones that never materialize. The ones that I've had some stuff where I've looked at persons and I've been like, you know what, like, male or female, by the way. Especially sister got really mad about something, Polynesian sister. And one of the Polynesian sisters that be like, not fat. I'm talking about like swole. Right? And I was looking at her because I know how they raise and stuff over there. And I was like, I might have to protect myself against this girl. And I'm pretty sure I'm going to win. But knowing where she's from, I don't know how this, this might turn into something else, right? Praise yeah, I didn't, right? Because I've never I've never fought a woman before, right? That being said, like, I don't want to in that situation. If it had to, it had to. If I had to defend myself, and even defense doesn't mean necessarily I'm trying to like go blow for blow, but still, I'm not going to just. I won't say what she was trying to. Long story short, she was mad at somebody in her family, and thought that I was helping somebody in her family to do whatever, and basically like she was ready to take life, calmer heads or head, what is it, calmer heads prevailed or whatever the saying, however the saying goes. But I'm just saying that to say I look back at that, and even if I would have won, it might not have been a great thing. So that's one of the fight, like my best fights, my favorite fights are the ones I never fought. When I was younger, you don't think like that, but you get older, you like, yeah, the best fights I'm in are the ones that I never fought. Cooler heads prevail. There you go. Whatever the saying is, right? So, anyways, it's about time at this point now. I'm just sitting up here telling all my personal stories. Um, love you all to life. Thank you for everybody who was on the meeting yesterday. Still got a rack of Patreon stuff. I got like 20 something videos that need to be posted. So they're done. They just need to be posted legit. So prayerfully that'll be done this afternoon. For those that are on Patreon, and those who are SOC England or SOC UK, or UK SOC, whatever it is that we're calling it. I'll talk to you guys tomorrow. We'll get back on track. We missed last Saturday, so we'll be back on track. And brothers, don't forget that we have our men's meeting this Saturday, I believe, right? If I'm not mistaken. Yeah, we have our men's meeting this Saturday. Those of you who, oh, I guess, real quick, somebody was asking me about Valentine's Day, was it? Valentine's Day, I don't have anything to do with. I don't know the last time I did Valentine's Day. I didn't even believe in it. Neither did really Elder Alma back when we did it the last time we did it with each other. It was like when we first were married or something. I think we might have done it. But long story short, Valentine's Day is a lot of weird stuff put in there. It's a Roman Catholic day dealing with Saint Valentine, kind of sort of like what they do with um, Santa Claus or Saint Nick, where they take a bunch of real characters and kind of put them together. Um, because of the love and stuff that he gave the people, for real, more than likely too, because of stuff he was doing he wasn't supposed to do as a priest, because in their belief system, if you're a priest, you're not supposed to have sex. But he was, involved with some of that stuff too. But apparently, supposedly, he had a heart for serving the persons in the community and stuff that he was over, and so they basically knew him as somebody who was of love and gave charity. And so after his passing, he was made a saint, which usually means you have to vote for the person to be a saint, or sometimes the persons choose them because they're popular in the area. Like Joan d'Arc, or Joan of Arc, was considered to be somebody who they made her sign a false thing and all that stuff to say that she was of the devil, and then she went against it at the end, but they still used it to get. So they basically, did all the stuff to her as a young girl, and offed her in front of everybody. But then later on, when she was becoming, or the French had gotten more popularity, and the Pope saw what would happen if he kind of gave them a shout out or whatever towards Joan. He then made her a saint. So that's usually how they do their saint stuff. And they usually kind of mix and match different persons' stories and things like that to make stuff work together. Um, but uh, but yeah, as far as like Valentine's Day within itself, especially when you start getting the Cupid and stuff like that, which is like Pan's Labyrinth type stuff as well, or just Pan, if you know who Pan is, as far as the Greek god and stuff like that. And also the Cupid is not only a baby, but also an adult. So, like a lot of persons don't get that there's even some, I don't know if I'm allowed to say the word, so I'll say I'll just say certified lover boy, certified, right? For those who know the Kendrick lyrics, I'm talking about Drake, uh, or right. But when you're dealing with a PDF, you're dealing with that's a lot of Cupid stuff. So Cupid in there, also the forcing the persons to give their heart to other persons is kind of grapish. Not kind of, it is. Um, Mind control, a lot of different stuff like that. So, and then the fact that for many, it's it's kind of one of those things too, to where if you are treating your spouse, because we don't do dating here, so I look at through the prism of spouse. If you're treating your spouse with respect at all times, really it's something that's not even there. I think the last Valentine's Day we did, and then from that point on, whenever my wife has even been asked about it, um, she just tells persons like, my husband gets me flowers all the time. He takes me places all the time. He loves me all the time. So, I don't really need Valentine's Day to get what I get all the time, if not more so. So, and I was even talking to somebody the other day. I went to the store. This was like a few days ago, and I got some flowers for my wife and for her mother, and the guy was like, "Oh man, you really gonna have your stuff together for Valentine's Day, huh? You really gonna?" And I was like, and I just looked at him and stuff, and I wasn't trying to be mean. I just said, "Hey," "Oh no, I get flowers for my wife all the time." And he's like, "Oh, you wanted them?" And he's like basically trying to say I was a simp or whatever. And I wasn't even trying to be mean. I just said, "Well, if you gotta have somebody that if you have somebody that you think is only worthy of getting flowers or chocolates or whatever on one day during the year," I was like, "I feel bad for you." I was like, "I hope that more persons feel like, towards my wife." I was like, "I don't even celebrate Valentine's Day. I just happen to be at the store and I get flowers every once in a while for, to make sure I have flowers in the house so that she knows that I'm thinking about her. It's just a gift." you know. So I was just telling them like, I would hope that there's more persons that feel like that. And then apparently, I guess it had been a little thing where persons were paying attention to us, and I didn't mean to like make him feel bad or whatever, but I was just telling the truth. Like, if you feel like that, so even Valentine's Day in that sense is very odd, where a lot of persons like are like on this one day in particular, but that's more commercial stuff too. Persons trying to make money off of all the stuff that's going on and things of that nature. So I don't know. I could go on, I guess, but I mean, for the most part, I think that kind of gives a thought process on what it is that my particular thoughts are on Valentine's Day. Also, to the fact that it's dealing with all these guys and different things, and it's holy days and stuff. I don't mind like traditions. I say that all the time. Like, there's days that we do out of tradition that aren't necessarily holy days or holidays, but we keep them up, right? But that being said, with the tradition, as far as this tradition in general, there's just a lot of stuff that comes with it that doesn't seem to be righteous and kind of seems to be more and here's another piece too. It seems to be a big excuse for persons to just go out on dates. you know Find your Valentine. They were teaching us well when we were young in school and stuff, and having us buy candies and stuff and sharing them with each other and everything, and getting cards and all this, and it just it's commercialized and used to be able to play on emotions, to be able to get person to do stuff. So I will never say it's wrong for you to love on your wife or to love on your husband for that matter, right? That being said, though, you know we can do it without Valentine's Day. But I'll leave it there. Thank y'all. Thank you for listening to that last bit of rambling. We'll do a quick shout out if it allows us to do one today. Wouldn't let us do one yesterday. All right, praise y'all. All right, so we'll do a quick shout out, and you guys do what you do. Love y'all to life. Thank you so much again for all your prayers and everything. Continue to love on each other. Thank you for coming out for the meeting yesterday. I'll be sending out a text message with some of the stuff that we talked about yesterday. So prayerfully, you guys who are coming and who filled out the form, and even those who said they're coming, even if they didn't fill out the form, I'll try to send you a text today with Sister Renee's information on it, and we should be able to start getting this stuff together. And hopefully, I will also have a day and time for you all. Or a day and time, or just at least a day that we need to have the donations by, if you're coming for sure, to make sure that we're saving a spot in the hotel and saving a spot for your for the for the Bible Museum. And of course, the other things we'll be doing, but those are the main two. We need to make sure we save a spot for you all. All right, so love you all to life. You all take care. Continue to do great things. I will talk to you guys very soon, and We give our honor and praise to the Most High. We give our praise and honor to Him for my wife, the Honorable Alma. And remember, as always, family, that you are loved, you are necessary, you're majestic, you're fearfully and wonderfully made, and you, which is all of us working together, will be the reason why people who are in the system no longer have to be of it. Shalom, family. Take care. Peace. We'll talk to you soon.